All right, and we are back with another Ask Q. Um, yeah. Tonight's gonna be a fun stream. It'll be an informative stream. To be honest, I'm gonna try and do my best to catch up with a couple different things that I really haven't gotten a chance to dive into. Some things that probably be pertinent for me to just understand with a couple conversations that I have coming up. Some of that being the Michael Parsons thing. I know tomorrow on the To Be Fair show, we're going to talk about exploitation versus opportunity, and the Michael Parsons, Jerry Jones thing is its own thing. There has been some Trump things that I haven't really gotten a chance to get around to. Of course, the whole DC National Guard update, him pushing people or him sending the National Guard out to more cities, him and the whole woke museum thing. I ain't really get a chance to really dive too deep into that. So I'm gonna watch some of that. The guy, Tariq Nasheed, he has also made his way to Vlad. I thought the culture didn't like Vlad, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he said, plus how it is received. Chuck, I seen you in the background for a second. I was gonna add you up, but look like you disappeared. But nonetheless, y'all see the call-ins. Make sure that y'all call in, tap in, and yeah. We gonna have some fun. I guess we could probably start off with I know the Trump Smithsonian slave play whole thing has been a big thing. They had a panel recently on CNN. So I'm look at Chuck that made it back again. Let me bring Chuck up as I introduce this. Chuck, what's going on, brother?
Hey, salute. Thanks for having me up on the panel.
Yes, sir. Damn, what am I trying to do? So nonetheless, as I was saying to them, let me just try and go through a couple different things, and if you have some commentary, you got some thoughts, let me know. I'll stop and we can chop it up about it. Oh yeah, if you got something, I know y'all send memes or conversation pieces all the time inside the chat. So if you got something you want me to look at, send it inside the private chat. I'll make sure I bring it up or pull it up.
Okay, cool.
All right, so we'll start off with this panel. CNN, they had a panel recently. I think it was this week, dealing with the whole Trump Smithsonian, the museum, the too woke, that whole deal. So I'm gonna watch a little bit of it. I haven't gotten a chance to watch any of it, so I'm gonna watch some of it. Chat, talk to us. Let us know your thoughts. I'm gonna push play.
New York. Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being pushed by the President of the United States. Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of Black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron.
All right, so I think that
once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep free.
I think that
to see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both sane-wash and whitewash American history, and essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of the actual.
Hey, chat, let me know. Listen, I watch. For y'all, I'm gonna put it at 1.5. I typically watch things almost at 2, but yeah. If y'all can deal with 1.5, let me know. If I need to slow it down, let me know. Chuck, you got any commentary so far?
I have seen a few videos about Trump's desire to, I don't know, to reframe slavery or to highlight the benefits of slavery. But I definitely see that it is very controversial, and I completely understand why people would have a problem with it. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Real and horrific parts of our history. And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second, I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play actually what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
So was it that he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
You know, I'm really struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly given that the tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care and the patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells us, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just not, refuses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, this country cannot be woke because woke is broke. We have to have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums. Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Oh my God! Like I'm sorry, Trump is hilarious. And one thing he knows how to do is message to his base.
Yeah,
with like that simplified thing, and especially understanding timing wise. I can't remember which show it was, but somebody, I think Johnny was talking about how like there tends to be a lot of intentionality to when he does some of these specific attacks or movements or different things, like the DC National Guard thing, him pushing during like this Epstein thing, not Epstein thing, but this whole attack on the museums. Weirdly, it tends to be right around the time whenever let's say, not unemployment, the economy get bad news, he'll drop something. Epstein files, he'll drop something. Oh damn, it sounds like inflation's about to go crazy if he forces the what is it, not the tariff but interest rates to 1%, he drops something. Like it's always very, very interesting how Trump understands once his base gets a little unsettled or restless kind of with him, how he can stoke the flame. That's what it tends to seem like to me.
but I think this is a culture war issue. I think making America great again has something to do with how America was founded, and the slavery really is the original sin of the United States. By dwelling on slavery in a way that robs America of its moral capital, it really does damage America's reputation. And I think what Trump is trying to do is to try to restore America's reputation and restore some of the moral capital that America lost during slavery and Jim Crow, in what it emphasizes on the accounts of slavery. So I think he's trying to kind of, I don't know, change the optics in a way that is more unifying. I think he really is trying to unify Black people and white people, but it's really hard to do that with the way he's doing it, because slavery really is like the origin story of the African American
Okay, so I
experience.
guess let me ask. So are you saying that you think that in good faith he's trying to unify the Black and white people to have like I don't know, I guess what would it, maybe what you're saying, like some moral baseline to where it doesn't only just dwell on slavery was the beginning, and
Right.
then like we made it past there. And you think he's doing that more so in a good faith manner, or well, yeah, I guess I'll ask that, and then
I think this is what he thinks he's doing. I think in his mind, he's trying to unify Americans on the basis of citizenship and being Americans. But what I don't think he understands is
but
that,
how would that dive into slavery at all?
okay,
You're saying like woke is broke.
right, because okay, what woke people focus on is, well, okay, Black Americans paid the highest price for American citizenship. 250 years of chattel slavery, followed by 100 years of Jim Crow, which is racial apartheid, and a period of lynchings, uh, and not having civil rights before just recently achieving civil rights in the 1960s. And I think what Trump is trying to do is to soften that narrative, but I don't think it's reason. I don't think you can do it because in
Yeah, it
so
seems like
doing,
it would naturally inflame it more.
yeah,
Like if you try to suppress it in more than just accept, because I guess it sounds like you're saying that he's trying to make a moral plea to America that ends up becoming better for America on the world stage. Well, I guess let me walk back some of that. So I guess it's hard for me to understand that point that you was making. Also, like
okay.
the idea of like
Mhm.
moral capital in America being who America is on the world stage, and then I would then have to ask: does the world and will the world ever see America as a moral faction? And
Uh,
like, I don't think
mhm.
that the world sees America as that, and the world probably will ever. The majority of the world's not going to see America as that.
Mm.
And that's what I'm saying. That's where to me that that idea would kind of like fall flat, because of if it's based off morality, America hasn't really moved off of moral capital. It's moved off military strength really more than anything. And most of its dealings in other countries can kind of come down to almost corrupt morality.
This
And
is true. This is true. But what America's enemies always seize on, when condemning America, is the history of enslavement of Black Americans. And
what would be an
all,
example of that? Because I don't know that to be true.
okay, so whenever America deals with China, and America condemns China's civil rights abuses with the Uyghurs, China always, pushes back and saying, how, you don't have any authority to talk to China about how we treat our people, because look at how you treated your slaves. Look at how you treat Black Americans today. So it's like a the how America treats Black Americans is a weak spot in their messaging, and in how, and what the America's enemies, namely Russia, China, and
But I
Iran.
guess geopolitically, is that a I don't know that to ever be like a major conversation though.
Oh, that's
Like I
true.
understand like the Uyghurs in China and kind of, but even inside our issues with China, I don't really see that as like a a deal breaking issue typically, nor like one of the higher ranking issues on it. Same with I think you said Russia, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I don't know them because like shit, Ukraine is fucking great. Like they don't really like Black people over there. They had a
that's
bunch
true.
of racist factions over there that were anti-Black, anti a bunch of different things. And that's where, like I said, I don't know if moral capital is necessarily like America's biggest strength. And I don't know if moral capital is necessarily like America's biggest strength. And that's where, like I said, I don't know if moral capital is necessarily like America's biggest strength. And that's where, like I said, I don't know if moral capital is necessarily like America's biggest strength. And typically the people that make those arguments are like maybe like the liberalist factions of America and Chinese people arguing on the internet, but I don't really know like Xi Jinping and Trump to be speaking, or Putin to really care about that part of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. These are usually points I hear made on social media, not the leaders themselves making this. Just the people from those various countries, talking back and forth amongst themselves. So yeah, point taken. Point taken. Yeah, but I don't know where I was landing with that, but I think that what Trump is trying to do is to reframe the slavery narrative in a way that to unify people, but anything you say about slavery it's a very
Do you
sensitive
think that's
issue.
possible?
I don't think it's possible.
Right.
Because
Okay.
you're talking about the origin story of African Americans, and to try to reduce the atrocity of it is I don't see how it's going to fly personally.
Right. It's kind of like whether justly or unjustly, like if you try to minimize what happened in the Holocaust, Jewish people are going to naturally push back, throw a bunch of names on you and call it, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to push back on something that is naturally deemed an atrocity. And to me, like I would just think that the easier route would be to say, hey, this was a blemish in American history. And we've moved on from that. And today we have done the best over XYZ and through my presidential term to make sure that these are no longer ramifications that are issues. And because of that, we have repealed DEI. You could play into the idea that it's not needed without having to, in my opinion, go down the line of specifically, I don't know, like if you would call it erasure, but kind of doing the PragerU of shit, where it's like, well, slavery wasn't that bad, and they learned some skills, and it was, they sold each other, and it's like, I don't know if you have to do that to be able to make that, to sanitize it for the public.
But in domestic policy disputes between like the liberals and the Democrats, the liberals do use slavery in a way to demonize the conservative faction as racist. So what if he's trying to, reduce the venom of their attack? Okay, you call us racist. You call the conservatives racist because of slavery. But if I can reframe slavery in a way that makes it less of an atrocity, then that reduces your ability to hit me with it.
But my thing would be, do we blame Republicans for slavery in America? Like, is that the narrative, or is it just white people in general, America's history in general? Like, I think more racism is blamed on Republicans, quote unquote, or more, let me see, like soft racism is blamed more on Democrats. Like very upfront racism tends to be blamed on Republicans, in my opinion. And but I think the burden of slavery tends to fall on all white people regardless. And that's where like you get like the liberal guilt, and then in my opinion, like the MAGA kind of like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just from my limited understanding, this is how I see it. But I admit that I could be completely wrong, and I'm open to anybody's other ideas.
Yeah, like I said, I'm as you speak, I'm just gonna like I'll take in what you're saying. As you seen, I did that. Like I'll take in some, and then as I'm talking through it, I might agree, might disagree. But yeah, we just conversing, my brother. Let me push. Let me bring it back up. Let me push play. See if we can make it through this and continue the conversation.
Well, look, I think let me just start this conversation by saying that
why is
Scott Jenny gonna drop one? I already know. Go ahead.
we have to have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums. Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And
but
so
isn't
that's
that
what
what
I
makes
think.
museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible.
Yeah, I guess that's she's probably gonna go closer to where I would land is that I feel like a museum shouldn't be propaganda though. Like a museum shouldn't paint the story of your country as like inside the most favorable as much as like the most historically accurate. I guess that'd be the way I'd say it.
Right.
But
But
what I
should a
can go ahead.
but should a museum give the citizens of the country, make them feel bad about being a citizen? Like, okay, understanding that slavery, this country was founded by people who owned slaves,
Mhm.
and in its inception, slavery was legal, and people became wealthy off of the institution of slavery, and it entailed the suffering of millions of African slaves for hundreds of years. Um, this is not a happy story. This is not good. It doesn't leave the citizen with a good feeling. I think what Trump is doing here is trying to manage that in a way that you could still feel proud to be an American, even in the reality of the history of slavery. But it's like he's trying to thread that needle, and I don't. I don't think he's succeeding.
Right. I guess I would say to and I guess a bit of to what he's asking, or yeah, maybe what he's asking, maybe what I was kind of like getting from what you might be kind of implying. I think that slavery and or like an atrocity of a country, it should be in the museum representative of like however long that lasted and however long the museum does its segments of time. Does that make sense? Like I agree that if you walk into the America's museum, the majority of museums shouldn't be slavery. But it should be representative of this impact and of like its placement in the timeline. Has also been a lot of things that's happened afterward that you should really dive into and are to be proud of, and then still some to be sad about. I just think that it should be historically accurate, and it should be representative inside of equal facts into how impactful and like its duration within the American timeline.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can't agree with that. I can't disagree with that at all. I think you said it perfectly. Yeah.
I'll push play.
Horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has, you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional. And in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past, and to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it. And Bachi may want to comment on this as well. But I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Or are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving
commodity.
commodity.
I ask when I hear you say that is why, I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. You know, I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody's proposing that we ignore that it happened.
I think that the problem is that there are people, and Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, you know, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are, 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices owned slaves. The people who are on our money every single day own slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress own slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, own slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear own slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that. But even more importantly, and this is where I believe that Scott and I can find agreement on this issue. I mean, Breon and Megan Walker, two of my best friends in the world, their dad was the first African-American SGA president at the University of South Carolina, right? He was an exec at IBM, but he was one of the first, right? We're still talking about first that emerged and stood on those shoulders. I tell the story often about my mom and dad. My mom helped desegregate high schools. In Hamilton High School in Memphis, Tennessee, my dad shot in the Orangeburg Massacre. This is a part of my story. This isn't some faint, distant history. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think.
Hey, do you watch, is it called The Brothers, I want to say?
The Brothers. Is that
Brothers. Damn it, what's that? It's the suit. I'm gonna bring it up in a second.
That American exceptionalism talks about the fact that Black folk help, enslaved folk help build this country for what it is. They built Washington, D.C., but all of us are around this table. Abby, myself, all of us, not just Abby and myself, all of us are around this table because of the sacrifices and the blood and the sweat and the tears these people poured.
That's what it's called. It's called The Boys. You've never watched The Boys, right?
Enslaved folk help.
Is that superhero show with
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
One is fire. Two, she looks just like that the woman that blows people's heads. But
you're right. Newman something Newman.
Yes. It's something Newman. She looks just like her. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
but maybe this wasn't the inflammatory panel. I get there had to have been an inflammatory one.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution.
Without King being assassinated, we don't even take the Confederate flag down without 9 people being killed in a church, right? We don't talk about criminal justice reform without a Black man being killed in the streets. And so when we are articulating our views to you about the remnants thereof, I understand your point that we are not
suddenly we should just move past it.
I think we've had more than just moments where we have had massive leaps forward in the way we treat each other in this country. I agree with Batya. Where we sit today is vastly different than where we sat in the 1960s or the 1920s or the 1860s. And it's not even close. I don't think anybody's disputing that. I think it's just a question of, do we need to just stop talking about it because we're not in Jim Crow? Proposing that, but what I do think he is proposing, and I think this is worth discussing, is that as we go into our 250th anniversary, how are we presenting ourselves to the world? Are we presenting ourselves as a country that is obsessed with our worst moment, or are we presenting ourselves as a country that managed to overcome our worst moment and have been improving ever since?
It's not about being obsessed with our worst moment. I mean, again, I think it's an important part. Last year, 17 million people visited the Museum for African American History and Culture, and I think that's an important number because part of what they saw was that this was a story about African American resilience. This is a story about community. It is a story about democracy and triumph. But it is also
wait. So is his issue the museum for like the history of African American, whatever she had just said? Is that what his issue is?
I think that it's the Smithsonian's Museum of African American History, and some of the exhibits there are.
But that makes way more sense though.
Yeah,
I thought he was upset about just a history museum, just a regular museum. But he's mad that slavery is a big part of the African American History Museum.
Right. So
that's kind of wild.
Some of the exhibits there are make it difficult for, if you're a white American, it makes it difficult for you to have pride in being an American, seeing what happened back there for 250 years. You understand? I
get it, but isn't that kind of the point of a museum though? The only issue is that we're so close to it, maybe. But when you go to other countries and you see all the medieval torture devices and shit like that, it's kind of a very similar thing. But especially and now when we get into proportionality, and then we're only talking about Black America, you got to think 250 years of enslavement. What would you say, 100? What has it been? Maybe 150, 160, 70, something like that. Years of freedom, but then you still have to add in Jim Crow. And so really you're looking at maybe since 60s, let's say 70s. We'll round up to 70, 75. That's about 50 years of post Jim Crow Black America. But you got about 300 years of Jim Crow and slavery.
Yeah, but America just started as a country officially 1776. So it depends on where you start counting. If you start counting at 1619, then 200,
Well, then-
1619.
and it still would be like 200 to 50, even
Yeah,
if you start 1776.
Yeah,
It'll be close enough to 200.
yeah.
Well, no, it'll be
But
200. Yeah, it'd be closer. Yeah.
that's still more time in being enslaved than
Yeah.
post civil rights. So the history of America is one where Black Americans have mostly not have civil rights. The
Right. But
civil
what
rights
would you expect to see if you went to the African American Museum, though? Like, if you're a white
That's true.
person, and that's what I'm saying. Like, then you could just go to the regular Smithsonian Museum. Just don't go to that exhibit. I could imagine if you're a white person and you go visit the African American, what you think is just going to be hip hop? And like, what, I don't know. That just seems like a crazy concept to be upset that slavery and civil rights would be a big part of the African American Museum. Like, if it's American, I get it completely.
Yeah.
Because of like, that's its own segment, but I think that there's a bunch of other things that you could look at.
I think it's a culture war issue. I think that there may be people at that museum, or people
It is a culture war. Yeah.
behind those exhibits that are, using federal money to really go after the white people who did these atrocities, and I don't think it sits right with Trump. You see what I'm saying? So it's
well, but I think like you can look at things in a couple different ways.
Mhm.
This is just like my opinion of like how, if I was him, I would approach it. I think that there's a better battle to fight than justifying or softening slavery in comparison to saying like the Overton window of that time was different, and because of that, I'm not going to knock down the statues and shit like that.
right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, I think
Yeah,
that those are like different to me. Like that's the better argument to make, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. They could say like the past is a foreign country. They did things differently back then, but we live in a new time.
Right. What was normalized then is different than what was normalized now, and like it'd be it would be unjust to specifically knock down the statues of men that did other great things for the country, because I think you could argue both ways, but I think that there's a solid America quote unquote first argument that's based around that though.
But on the left, on the liberal side of the aisle, there is a lot of identity politics.
Right.
So the one aspect I see on the left is that they win elections by dividing people up into specific identity groups based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and they're trying to break people into these groups and then realign them using like intersectionality. And I think this intersectionality of these different groups is something that is kind of is polarizing the
I guess like I understand your argument, but my thing would be, do you like, I don't know the right to play identity politics less than the left. I guess that'd be the best way I could put it. Even if I'm like, I don't have to like do the comparison game to say who plays it more, but I don't know them to play it less. Like, Trump's main thing was appealing to poor white rural people, and he did it massively, and he won because of it. Another big part of his thing was Hispanics are XYZ and immigration. Another big part of his thing was like and then we got in trouble with it, was that like the H-1B visas and shit like that. Like, he plays, and the Republicans tend to play on the minority card. And then, I mean, they champion and speak to a lot the exploitation of white men. Like that, like they do the flip right now. Like, young white men are the endangered species of America and shit like that. And I think that like they just do their own version of it. That's why what's his name? Nick Fuentes, he been on a run because of, he was one of their identity politics childs, and like they've kind of like tried to shun him and disown him a little bit. And so like he's been on his rant, but he's a product, everything that he speaks of, like they like, hell, you like if it's one thing the right, especially the far right, like they're gonna get into that Israel-Palestine conversation, and they dive into Zionism. Like they play identity politics really heavy. Hell, they lean heavy on the race card, but they do it in the inverse, where they say black people are always playing the victim and woke, and they demonize the concept of woke. Like I said, I think the left does identity politics a lot. And so I'm not using this like part of the conversation to justify them at all or give them any bail. Only just saying that I do think that the right identity politics just as hard, if not, I'm gonna just say just as hard as the left does.
Yeah, that when you frame it that way, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially with the immigration and the build the wall, and yeah, there's been a lot of identity politics based around, you know, the immigration issue. So
yeah. And it's not like he doesn't not name them. Like shit, what his first term he called a bunch of countries shithole countries, and then he was trying to ban Muslims.
Yeah,
it was like 7 countries he banned Muslims from coming in from. Like he bases it primarily on identity a lot of times, in my opinion.
but there is also, you know, changing demographics in America where whites are projected to be a racial minority group by the middle of this century. So I think there is a lot of fear from the MAGA base about the prospects of being a minority group for the first time in a country where, you know, they were the majority for 250 years. So I think there's a lot of fear in the MAGA base about these demographics that is fueling a lot of this rhetoric and a lot of these policies. So
what you're referring to is what they call the Great Replacement theory.
Exactly.
And which, I think that's the Tiki Torch whites out at what is that? Charlottesville. You will not replace us. You will not replace us. When they was chanting that's kind of what it was speaking towards. Which I think, what is it, like somewhere around like what is it, 2060, 2050, somewhere in there. They're supposed to become the majority minority, which for the first time they would have minority status, where if you combined all of the minorities in the country, they would equal up higher to what the white majority would be. Right now, the whites are still the majority when you add up all minorities. And I guess I do want to. Well, I don't know how much more factual this would be, but this would be a quick little. We at 1.5, so it's about 2-minute excerpt, kind of speaking more so to some of the facts of Smithsonian. I should have grabbed something from Fox, but I didn't get a chance.
After saying it focuses too much on, quote, how bad slavery was. And he wrote this: the Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. And we are not going to allow this to happen. And I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities, end quote. For more on this, I want to bring in Ibram X. Kendi, a professor of history at Howard University here in Washington. Ibram, thanks so much for joining us. First of all,
I do want to say this, like there's this term in which I honestly don't know if we're going to get to it on the To Be Fair show tomorrow, but it's a term that I've recently come across just inside, like, just in my listenings and readings, and it's the banality of evil. And what it speaks, well, it speaks to a couple things, but it originates out of like the like Nazi Germany and the whole thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept, but
I've heard the phrase, but I'm not sure exactly what it means. Go ahead.
But in essence, it speaks to the concept and the idea that evil is not as devilish as we make it seem, right? And that when we look at, let's say, slavery, or like this, I don't really want to use slavery, but I like if we use the Holocaust, right? And in history, it makes it seem and feel as though like like Nazi Germany, like Germans were just possessed by the devil, and these were evil, demonic people who had this bloodthirsty urge to kill the Jews, and that was kind of like the narrative. If you like take one step back in what you were taught in school, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where this proposes that it's so far the opposite, where the reality is that it's not too far past what most societies have either done, seen, and or are susceptible to through the proper, in essence, channels of propaganda, where like you start with like some of these basic things like dehumanizing a specific group, and you just start walking down some of these different little levels to where eventually, once you don't see, and you see, I don't know if you're like I'm a bit kind of like a techie sci-fi guy, so like I watch like some of the Black Mirrors and shit like that. Or it was recently another movie that just came out, but in essence, there was a episode of Black Mirror where the soldiers, they were psyop. Well, they had like a little chip. Had like a little chip in their brain, in which when they went to war, they were desensitized, i.e., like smell and taste, and they were also told that the people that they were fighting were no longer human. They were subhuman. They called them roaches, and when they seen them, they looked like these little creatures or whatever, right? And like it made them easy to kill. Like you could kill a whole bunch of like these subhuman roaches who carried like defective DNA, and they were killing mankind. It became really, really easy to kill all these people, right? And a part of the movie is that, or the show is that, like one of the guys, they end up getting hit in the head, and the chip kind of malfunctions, and now he can smell grass. Now he can taste, and then he's still running this mission, but he walks inside like one of the spots where they're killing, quote unquote, the roaches. He's like, oh wait, shit, it's a civilian. I got to save this person. But then his comrades are coming in and they're trying to shoot and kill, and like it's this whole thing. And to me, I think that kind of speaks a bit to like this concept of like the banality of evil, where I don't think that the majority of people that commit a lot of these monstrosities are specifically believing that they are conducting evil, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
As much as like it's like brainwashing from propaganda and institutionalization and shit like that, where like you look at this thing as less than. Like humans never have had a problem killing animals, never had a problem like whatever you want to say. As soon as you can dehumanize a group or people or a thing, then it becomes so much easy to feel that it's functional to eradicate them. And go ahead.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's another layer on top of it too. I studied biology and psychology as an undergrad. And one of the things I learned is about the psychology of violence and the psychology of evil. So the people who are capable of the most atrocities are people who see themselves as victims, right? So if you're a victim of an act or of a violent event and you retaliate, you are likely, if you have the opportunity, will retaliate to a greater degree than what was attacked, than you received. So I think one of the things I learned, one reading of the Holocaust, was that the Germans saw themselves as victims of the events of World War I. Like they suffered losses and their economy took a hit, and
they
as a
looked
result,
at the Jewish people as evil.
Right. So they saw they are the victims, and the Jewish people were the aggressors. So the events of World War II were just these people who see themselves as victims acting out in a way that, in their view, felt justified to them. So this is something that I think there's a grain of truth in it. Like, if we have a lot of white males in this country who are seeing themselves as victims, and I worry that this could push us to some kind of civil unrest or civil conflict. You see what I'm saying? So,
Oh no, I agree, and I guess like so I was saying all that to bring it back to where we was at with the Smithsonian and slavery and how bad slavery is, and kind of some of the quotes that that it looked like Trump was saying, where I see this, and honestly, I like there's another reason why like I personally don't engage in like the back and forths of like the diaspora and FBA and all that shit, because of like I personally see black people as just black people. And once we get into like the name calling and like degrading and all that shit, to me, I think that it falls inside those same similar lines. Is that like it's easy to subhumanize, and then like I personally like I shout out to my boy Varel and a bunch of other guys like they'll throw out like the Quees and Keishas and Tyrones and whatever. Like I personally don't engage in any of it because of I think that it dehumanizes and it leads to an easier way to be able to kind of like fall into some of those traps. And I think that inside a lot of the discourse that you see in the diaspora, but I'll move it back to where we're at right here. When you hear like white supremacists talk, when you hear like a lot of modern day conservative Republicans, it used to be far right, but now, like I said, the Overton window is moving a little bit to where a bit of far right rhetoric is becoming way normal. Where you have like a guy like a Charlie Kirk, or you have like some of these guys that are mainstreaming a lot of the talking points that once would be on the fringe with the Nick Fuentes. And I think that once you start saying like black people are innately violent, and that becomes a common talking point on the right. Once you start saying things like like we have to do martial law to correct the black people problem in DC. Like a lot of these different things start playing on like slavery wasn't that bad and they should have been gotten over it. And like you can start running down the things. And yeah, like the woke is broke. Like it's a lot of rhetoric that as I then start looking at some of the other plays that Trump is doing, I do think that it's starting to lend me to think like, damn, 2 years ago, I would have never thought that America was as susceptible to some of the things that Trump is proving that it is susceptible to. And to me, I thought one of them would be a dictatorship. And the fact that like now it seems like he's kind of pushed the lines, especially with the stepping forward of pushing out the National Guard to a bunch of other cities now. And he'll go, and right now it's mainly just Democratic cities. So I'm going to the cities of my enemy. And I'm in essence saying that I'm going to enact martial law on these groups. And I'm like that wouldn't have been anything that I ever would have imagined. Like a president being cool with getting that shit off and the public unrest not being an issue. And yeah. Like I said,
he's appealing to what his base wants, and he has I would say about 50% of the country are going to follow him, and they're going to be behind whatever policy he makes. So we're in a era of divided government. So you have half the people don't like him at all. Half the people like him. So these policies that you are describing, I have heard people speak on them favorably. Like he's, you can walk in the streets look cleaner. There's no homeless people there. You don't have to worry about getting mugged. But then
they did jail a big portion of the homeless population. And the question is like, how much longer do you think they're going to keep them in jail? And then two, if they keep them in jail, what does that tax look like? But then, my bad. I cut you off. I'll let you keep going.
No. But I'm just saying that I think this is the middle of a culture war that we're in. And I think Trump is fighting this culture war for, the MAGA conservatives and, the people who support him. So I think, it's like, this feels like we're creeping closer and closer to civil conflict where half the people are for it, half the people are against it. And this is what I worry about. I don't like what this feels like and all the polarization that's happening regarding this.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. I think that I was trying to find the meme, but maybe I can't find it right now. As I push play, I'll try and find it. But it was somebody that they kind of broke down, and I thought that it was fairly logical. Maybe you could argue that it was extreme, or maybe not. Where he kind of breaks down how right now there is a bunch of things that seemingly seems to be moving towards civil unrest. And it's hard, in my opinion, to denounce it, but to each his own. I guess I'll push play on this, see if we can get through. We ain't about to watch. Well, this is the just a rundown. So I'll let our guy from Howard talk for a second, and then we'll move on.
A professor of history at Howard University here in Washington. Ibram, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, what's your reaction to this latest post about the Smithsonian from President Trump?
Well, first, I would say most of our public museums in the United States actually do not show how truly bad slavery was, because I think most Americans can't handle just the sheer agony, the sheer terror, the sheer violence it took to keep people enslaved their whole lives, laboring against their will, or to, most Americans can't really handle the agony of seeing children taken from their parents, or seeing the amount of terror that was required to keep millions of people enslaved. And so that, to me, as an historian, is actually what's quite interesting about this notion that it shows the way that the Smithsonian is presenting slavery.
I want you to listen, Professor, to what President Trump actually said. And I remember this back in 2017, during his first term. He had just been elected president, when he visited the National Museum of African American History and Culture here in Washington. Listen to this.
This museum is a beautiful tribute to so many.
You already heard that. All right.
Yeah. So this particular speaker, Ibram X. Kendi, he is one of the main proponents of critical race theory being taught in schools. And right. And I know for a fact that the conservative side of the aisle is against critical race theory, because what it does is that it doesn't allow young white children to feel good about themselves and to feel good about their history. So it's like your critical race theory makes young people in school feel guilty about slavery and the history of enslavement that occurred in America, and it doesn't allow them to feel proud to be an American. And I think that
I have a different read on it. I'm also I'm not for critical race theory being taught in classes, but it's for a different reason. I actually think that young white boys will feel empowered more than anything, and it's because they are pushed in or placed inside a superior light above, inside the hierarchy chain through the history of America. No matter what, if you are a white boy, a white kid, you would be at the top of the hierarchy chain in critical race theory, from the start, the inception, all the way up until now. You are the most powerful player in the game. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
In which, to me, I'm more worried about these dynamics being taught to young black kids.
Yes.
And to me, that's the thing that I don't trust. Let's say we're inside a red state. I don't trust that teacher to genuinely be able to articulate this hierarchy and why it doesn't matter. It's so much nuance to this conversation that I don't think that it's possible to be had inside a school, where I would rather just the facts be said and interpersonal dynamics be left to parents and kids. And if you wherever else you go and commune at and get your, you know what I mean, like your information, indoctrination, or institutionalization, whichever one of those things you go get that somewhere else at. I think that it's fair for you to go do that over there, and they'll break that part down to you. But I don't think that it's important for schools to do that part. I think laying out the history, like these things did happen. It happened in this way. You could even allow kids to have like open essays about how maybe it makes them feel per se, or their thoughts of like dynamics during the time. But I wouldn't want to put like a finite cap on like this is, or my bad, maybe objective cap on like what the racial dynamics are and how they are now and why it limits black kids, because to me that then pushes a version of learned helplessness.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way. I think my issue with critical race theory is that it tells young black students that they are permanent victims of broad societal racism, and no matter what they do, they'll never get out ahead because society is against them. And this is how this country started, and these are forces that are like overarching. And I think it does kind of induce a learned helplessness. If this is a context in which black people came to America, we were slaves, and this is the struggle that had to happen, and how many years we were slaves, and we have just gotten free within the past 50 or 60 years and had civil rights. That is that kind of makes you feel like a permanent victim. And I don't think that a permanent victim mindset is going to help you to be competitive and to once you see yourself as a victim.
I agree with you. Listen, they be arguing with me about not seeing myself as a victim. It's such a weird concept. Like, I don't know what niggas be arguing with me, but I'm like, bro, I just don't want to. I don't think I'm a victim.
Me neither.
My people have been victimized, and that's different. But like the state of being a victim, I don't identify with. And like that probably like leads into like some of my more conservative views. But I also think that I probably end up like leaning closer on the spectrum of like quote unquote liberal if you was to line all of my things up. But like I'm not a proponent of teaching critical race theory in school, especially grade schools. If you want to teach that in college, I do think that that's different. An elective course, I am cool with you teaching that. And I'd also like to say the idea of disagreeing with it being taught in schools is different than like agreeing or understanding parts of critical race theory, Afro pessimism, like the whole ideology base that a lot of this comes out of. I think that these are different factions.
Right. The Derek Bell, and I think there is a lot of important information in there, but I think it's for a college or law school audience. I don't think you should be teaching elementary school students about these concepts. I think it could be, if done improperly, you can have people thinking that they're stuck in this position for the rest of their life, and I don't think that's psychologically healthy.
It builds it gives a soft caste system almost.
Exactly. It's like creating a caste system. I see it like they're trying to create a caste system like Jim Crow era caste system. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree. All right, so we'll move on to Trump and the National Guard. I kind of spoke about it a little bit. We'll do a couple minutes on this. Like I said, I'm just trying to catch up on some of the most recent news that I probably done missed a little bit. This one is a Fox News one. Last one was a CNN.
Trump's crime crackdown sweeping the nation. After deploying the National Guard to Washington, D.C., now the White House plans to extend its effort across 19 states, all with the goal of curbing crime and supporting immigration enforcement. We'll talk to Republican Congressman Pat Fallon in just a moment. Plus, an illegal alien accused of killing 3 people in a truck accident is due in court today. What he's facing as yet another illegal alien, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was set free. And we're getting new details this morning.
It is funny, like you can immediately hear the different terminology.
Yeah.
Like it's hilarious.
On the raid of former national security.
Yeah, messaging. That's yeah.
Advisor John Bolton's home and office. So what was the FBI looking for and why? Welcome to Fox News Live, everybody. I'm Kevin Cork in the nation's capital. We begin at the White House just across.
Oh my God. Is that a hairpiece or did he go to where did they be going? Istanbul?
I don't know what that is. That looks
That's
some kind of
crazy. With the makeup on too. Like he got his eyebrows done like a black woman. This is nasty.
You look like Steve Harvey. He's
Yeah,
got the Steve Harvey's man unit.
Yeah, it does look close to a Steve Harvey man unit. I think, yeah, because I can see up at the top of it where it seemingly is like it looked like you could probably see through some of this. Here's my thing that I tell the fellas. Listen, I'm a part of the ball game. I bald gang. Like I let mine go about a year ago, right before I got married. I said fuck it, and it was cool. If you do want to hold on to your shit, right? If you want to hold on to it, here's my thing. It's simple. If you want to go to Istanbul, do your thing. I got a homeboy right now. He refuses to get rid of it, and every time I see him, I'll be like, "Hey, you can just let it go." And he be like you know they just passed the new trials for the new grow back XYZ. Like I'm just gonna wait it out. And I'm like, all right, hey, listen, that's you, my brother, but I ain't interested. My main thing is like if you gonna get the hair transplant, get it age appropriate. Like you can't go back to your 19-year-old hairline. It don't make sense. It don't look right. And this is why like the issue with my guy right here. He went back to his 19-year-old hairline, and which is too straight. And it like what he look like? He probably 47, maybe 52, somewhere between 47 52, right? Like they don't make black men hairlines like that right there. This looks artificial. It look artificial, and it's so
come from nature.
Yeah, right. It didn't come from nature, and it's okay to like adjust it because the issue is that you can tell that his the sides of it has receded back further. And he only cared about getting the top lower. And so, like, you can't have the sides pushed back here and then the top lower because now you look like you got the Akon cut. And it looked crazy. Or Anderson .Paak. He another one that got the crazy, like, I wanted to go back to my starting point when I was 19. Just go to your 30-year-old starting point. If you 50, go to your 35-year-old starting point. Right when it started thinning. And listen, it's going to be okay. I promise you. But if you go to your 19-year-old, you try and get the Paul George, you're going to look like an asshole like this guy right here.
You look black and knees.
You say what?
You look like he's black and knees. Look like he got people in China or something like that.
It don't make any sense. And that's the issue. But I'll go back to my my Fox News Republican brother and hear what he got to say.
For and why? Welcome to Fox News Live, everybody. I'm Kevin Cork in the nation's capital. We begin at the White House just across the road where the president wrapped up a fairly busy week. I think it's easy to say. Lucas Tomlinson joins us from the North Lawn. Hey, LT.
Good morning, Kevin. We just received some new numbers. Over 2,000 National Guardsmen are this morning patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. This comes as the D.C. police force we know is over 800 cops short. And those National Guardsmen are coming from a number of states, part of President Trump's crackdown on crime here in the nation's capital. And yesterday in the White House, the president says they could be going to other cities in the future.
We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
So Chicago and New York, Kevin. Now, for context, last year, the murder rate in D.C. was on par with Chicago and nearly 4 times higher than Los Angeles and nearly 6 times higher than New York, as you can see there. And
all right, we're going to go right back to this, but I found it, y'all. I did find it. This is where his original hairline is. Right here. I knew it was a transplant, and I could tell. Like I said, he got his hairline lowered to about right here. And fellas, if you're not thinning at the top, he was all right here. I don't know if he was all right. He might have been using Beijing at the top, but like you don't got to bring it back down here. It's all right, brother. I promise you. Like going from there to here, it looks wild. Like you didn't have to do that. That's all I'm telling you.
But with a hairline like that, would FBAs make any comments about his possible nationality? That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know that. I wonder what I don't know what the oh, you talking about like a hairline like this?
Yeah, is that an indigenous hairline, or is that
I think that
hairline from the
he looks like
Caribbean?
he has an indigenous hairline. He looked like he an
Okay.
old nigga. Like I guarantee you, when he was younger, his shit set inside like a regular way. I think when it starts doing like the horseshoe, that's when, in my opinion, it
Okay.
seemed like they kind of feel that way. I don't know. Them niggas. That's not. I don't play inside that sand a lot, so I don't be knowing all they talking points and exactly.
Yeah,
Like
but I know the hairline is a thing. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
It's definitely a thing for sure. I'll push play on it.
You mentioned off the top 1,700 National Guard members we sent to 19 states. That's less than 100 per state. The White House says they'll be helping DHS with clerical support and other logistical tasks for processing illegal aliens at ICE facilities. Now, speaking of law enforcement, yesterday FBI agents raided the home of Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, outside Washington, his home in Montgomery County, Maryland. And FBI agents were also seen in his office, the one he rents here in Washington, carrying boxes of documents, likely searching for classified information. Yesterday, the president admitted he's not a fan of Bolton, who wrote a book criticizing Trump after Bolton left the White House.
I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually. And he's
Trump is crazy. I ain't gonna lie. Like he's such a hateable, likable character. Like
He pops off. He don't mind. He don't mind. He'll say it. He'll say what he's thinking. You know.
They say this sleazebag while also wearing a Trump was right about everything hat. Like that's fucking hilarious.
suffers major Trump derangement syndrome.
Now, since returning the White House, Trump...
And then they taught him Trump derangement syndrome. He ain't let that one go either. Like, yeah, Trump's just a character.
Revoked the security clearance from Bolton and also took away his protective detail. And we've also learned the FBI director yesterday during that raid tweeted that no one is above the law and said the FBI is on mission, Kevin.
I said in the new forward to the paperback edition of my book, I think it is a retribution presidency.
And that security clearance was pulled after the president returned to office. And that also came at the same time he had some threats on his life from Iranian officials. Of course, Bolton had a lot to do with that strike on Qasem Soleimani. Kevin?
That he did. LTE on the North Lawn. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. The president, meantime, calling it a miracle, saying D.C. is safe again after he cracked down on crime right here in the nation's capital. And now that...
I had also heard that D.C. right now, currently, was at a 25-year low in crime.
I heard something similar. I think the DC mayor said that or something.
Yeah. And like in crime had for like the past 3 years been going down. Maybe it was at like 20, somewhere close to 25% as well. Where it's such an interesting concept where you can create a crisis and then deploy the whatchamacallits, the National Guard, the military.
Yeah. But one thing one pattern of behavior I've noticed from Trump is that he goes hard after his political opponents. Anybody who has tried to damage his reputation or even people who voted against him or who come out vocally to try to make him not win an election or who prosecuted him in court in advance of the election.
That's dictator shit.
Yeah, he has sharp elbows. But one thing I worry about is, okay, there was a segment of the population who voted 92% against Trump in the election, and they are the same segment who suffered 300,000 job losses when he...
talking about black women.
Right. So I don't see those two things as random. You see what I'm saying? I think he's... I worry that...
I would say... When I was talking, well, we've had a couple of these DEI conversations on the podcast, and in my opinion, like this is kind of what I had said if you was to go back to unpack that I thought that black women specifically, but also black people in general would be hurt most by DEI. Like my statement was that we benefit the least and will be hurt the most by them repealing DEI. And it came out to be true. Like we know that white women, then there's a host of other immigrants that benefit before black people. And they like who's been hurt the most when it comes down to job loss, unemployment have been black women. But black men has also been hurt by this exact same phenomenon.
Yeah, the cuts to DEI and the cuts to the federal workforce has had a disproportionate impact on black women. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think, he knows who is for him and who is against him. and he's changing the political environment and making it harder on some groups of people rather than others. So yeah, I think I worry about possible dictator moves here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, again, I get it. Like that was a bit of what I was saying with like the banality of evil was that like I don't think that like this is where it gets hard to make like these specific comparisons because of like it always seems hyperbole and like I wouldn't want to compare like Trump to Germany in like their ruler at the time. But if I'm like giving like a soft comparison that's exaggerated that lends to the point, I would say that I don't think that Hitler rose to power by strong arming.
No.
Like it was by favor in small increments, small little bits where he said, all right, I could take a little bit more. I could take a little bit more. I'm gonna say these things that appeal to the base, that appeal to the working common man that feels that he's left out over and over until where now I have enough power to now I can get and do exactly what I want to. And
we have 3 co-equal branches of government that's supposed to put a check and balance on any branch getting too powerful. So in theory, if anything I learned in in history or civics class is true, then this should not be possible. But it shouldn't be unless the executive
but the issue is that right now he on like until the midterms, he can get all the shit off because he has a majority inside Congress.
Okay.
And that's the part that like none of this would even matter. Like he couldn't get most of this shit off if it wasn't for the fact that he is a majority in Congress. But once they won that majority during the election, that was like, oh shit. Like Trump can try and get as much, and they fought in a lot of like the executive bills that he was signing. About half of them, if not like 2/3 of them, kind of got appealed through the courts. But Trump was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it all. Like I got the power and I'm going to try and do everything that I can do. And because if he had 2/3 of like in essence, like the decision-making power behind him, and as you just said a second ago, what does he do well? He threatens his political opponents.
Right.
Especially if you are on his side. Like if you go against Trump as a Republican, like you know, like BTA, he gonna bring the belt out. Yeah, and so the way that he you know, I mean, he cracked no pun intended, like he cracks the whip, and he has the 2/3. This is why it like going to what you were saying, it's a little different. Because of he's not just in like his first term, he didn't have Congress. And so then he could make excuses for it. And he didn't have as much power to kind of yield to try and do shit. But right now, you know what I mean, up until midterms, he can kind of he can try and at least he can try and get his shit off for sure.
And this is his second term, so he doesn't have to worry about any re-election campaign.
Right.
And he did put, I think, 2 or 3 justices on the Supreme Court, which shifted it to like a conservative majority on the Supreme Court. So he can expect that if any of his rulings make it to the Supreme Court, there's a good chance that he'll come out on top just based on the, you know, how he has packed the court. So I think he really is playing. He has strong cards, you know.
Yes. But I think right now, and this is the scariest thing would be if he finds a way to flip, because I think right now he has negative momentum, and the Republicans will probably lose the primaries. Not primaries, the midterms. But if he's able to flip this into a win and they win the midterms, then I think, oh fuck. I think that like because he has more leeway and more time to get more shit done with a stronger version of the House majority or the Congress majority. And that's what I would worry about more so. But I think that he'll lose the midterms, and I think the Republicans will lose the midterms, and it will restore a little bit more balance, in my opinion.
I live in a red state, and I know that a lot of the things that I worry about, and my family worries about, the conservatives.
You in Georgia, right?
I'm in Florida.
You said Florida?
Florida, yeah.
Okay.
And this is Rick. Ron DeSantis is our governor, and I gotta be honest with you, Trump is very popular here, and there's a lot of support for what he's doing. So I don't trust the government like that, but I think it's a mistake to think that everybody feels the way about this that we do. I think there's a lot of support.
I don't think that. I definitely don't think that everybody feels that way. Midterms is like interesting, in my opinion, where I think the activated group will vote more. And I think, generally speaking, American politics, like the past few elections, tells you that America is fairly split, except like the high majority. So like as high as it gets, like I forget what the last election was, like 79 million versus 81 million or something like that. Like it's very close when it comes down to the split. And like in some multiple elections, like you could win a popular vote, lose a majority. Like most of it, typically, in my opinion, comes down to, specifically midterms, is going to be who's activated and motivated to vote. Because of presidential elections, everybody comes out, so we get that. Now, when you're talking about midterms and like these seats that's going to be up for grab, it's going to be is the lazy voter activated to get up and go and go vote, right?
That's
true. I think that the Democrats have way more of a plea in activating their voting base in comparison to the Republicans, where I think there's a faction of Republicans that aren't, especially once, I think in a year, once it's midterm voting time, I think Trump has a big uphill battle. That'd be the best way I could put it. I think right now the economy hasn't shown positive signs, and he's trying to strong arm his way into shit. But I think that inflation hasn't really hit yet, and if he stays with a lot of the policies that he's at, like inflation is going to continue. Like, it's going to continue to hit. And the reality is, right now everything has went up under Trump. So like when he said that I ran on groceries, and it polled well. But groceries are up right now.
I think politics is downstream of culture. And I think that where American culture is now, mainstream American culture, is kind of like there's still an anti-immigrant sentiment. There is, I don't know, at least maybe in the state I live in, if the
but
Democrats,
I don't know if he's as strong in that right now. Well, so Trump has done, so to give Trump his credence, Trump has did a good, like he's controlled the border. That part for sure. Like he checks, thumbs up, everybody's cool on that. I think that there is a lot of people that voted for Trump that don't fuck with how he's doing the people that are in the country. And that's what you consistently hear about now. And I think that he's probably like, I would say of the people that voted for him, I think he's lost 25% of that when it comes down to immigration.
Yeah.
Because of just the whatever Garcia guy, the idea of like the home, like just grabbing people at Home Depot, mass agents grabbing women, like the way they're going, like non-convict XYZs getting rounded up. Like a Iranian woman that's 70, 80 years old being deported. Like the stories is kind of crazy. You be like, damn, that's interesting. You know what I mean? I think that those haven't been able to play well. And even like a lot of the momentum that he that he gained with the, what do they call it, the Brosphere, like the podcast group, like Joe Rogan's, the Andrew not Andrew Tate, what's his name, Andrew Schultz, the Theo Vons, like that whole community. They're all like, damn, Israel and Palestine is kind of fucked up right now, and
that's true.
Immigration is kind of shitty. You just grabbing it Mexicans out of Home Depot. Like they're not fucking with none of it. And so like I think that I don't know how motivated that base is going to be when it comes down to the midterms. And like I get the idea. Oh, shut up. My bad. I proud father of 5. I don't know what this. Oh, King Kunta just came in here and just was saying shit. Shout out to King Kunta. I don't have any biological, but I love them all like they're mine. Shout out to King Stepdad Kunta. It sound like. Hey, shout out to you, my brother. But my bad. Damn, I lost my train of thought. He threw me off.
He's losing support from the Joe Rogans and the Theo Vons.
Yeah, but, like the friends, like the people that was in the middle of the aisle that said, "Hey, I think," and then I'm be honest, like this Epstein thing has hurt him a lot.
Yeah, it did.
With his MAGA base and the people that, like, he has a certain core, and this is where, like I said, I don't know what the Republican Party is going to be after this, and I think that there's a lot of critique on the Democrat Party right now, rightfully so, and I think that they have crazy messaging issues that they have to worry about and figure out. I think the Republicans are going to have a shit storm of shit to figure out if everything continues as it is, because of their voting base that Trump appealed to has been hurt the worst. Like when you look at the rural white man, his life over these next 4 years, according to everything that was passed in the big bill, is going to become worse. Less of them's going to be on Medicaid. Like it's going to be higher inflation. Like you can kind of just go down the line, and they get impacted by it the most. And then there's not a reality of him bringing back coal mining and like these industrial jobs that aren't going to exist anyway because of heavy machinery. And I think that he ran at a really good time where like he could still push some of that because of like the like you know what I mean, people hated Joe Biden. It was he was an easy pup to kind of like fuck over. But Trump and like his popularity helps and hurts because he was able to get voted because he's funny and charismatic and popular. But right now his policies are killing the people that you're going to have to win the next time around, where you're not going to have him as this person that can get up there and say these polarizing fun things.
But it depends on how the Democrats play it too. If they play into these culture war issues, if they start talking about drag queens in elementary schools or
right. But let me ask you this, because I also think that this is, I think that you went to the issue where I think Democrats have to figure out where, name me the Democrat, especially prominent Democrat, that ever talked about any of that.
I don't know. I've heard people make, conciliatory noises about, love is love and,
No, but like
gender equality.
Like think about this. When has, let's just use Kamala, for example, or Biden, or we could use, like whoever we want to use. When have we heard any of them talk about trans women or trans men or whatever the thing is?
I think
or trans in sports. They
well,
don't.
I don't think they talk about it, but I think that they, it's a discussion that comes up with specific policies and specific school systems or specific bathroom policies or people putting tampons in the men's room in certain places. It really just that kind of thing will give the Republican base, the conservative base, a reason to get out and vote against it. So
right. And so I guess what I was saying, and this is why I said I think the Democrats have to figure out this thing, which is how to respond because they don't endorse it. Like, and that's why I said, like, I asked you the question of like, who do you know that is like an actual prominent Democrat that's running for anything that endorses any of this? Is pretty much none of them. But the Republicans run on it as a culture war issue. And then they impose that thought on said candidate. So, like, for example, Trump had the ad, Kamala is for whatever surgeries and da. And the reality would be that exact same surgery policy for them getting trans surgeries in prison, it was there during the Trump presidency as well. But the issue is that the the Democrats, they don't have they don't know how to respond to it because they don't want to alienate like this small faction of their base. Where like an easy rebuttal would be, hey, this same policy existed during that time, but in the sake of being inclusive, they'll just kind of shut up and not say a thing during this thing, even though like they didn't make this rule and they didn't endorse this rule, and Trump also allowed this rule to be there. And like for them, I think they have to find out what is the proper response to this thing, because of as soon as a Republican gets put in the box, they're going to go right back to the culture war thing, which you're right about. And my thing is that like the Democrats, they're like, especially prominent ones, they're in an interesting space because none of them actually have endorsed it, but they haven't like pushed back against it. And
this is because sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, this is because the Democratic coalition is made up of specific groups. It's like you have college age, you have young people, you have Black Americans, primarily Democrats, you have recent immigrants, you have LGBTQ people, you have feminists, you have white, a lot of white liberals, and you have like people who are like Bernie Sanders people, like these what do you call it, like the Democratic Socialists.
Yeah, Democratic Social, yeah.
And so it would offend this coalition of people if the Democrats spoke out against all this trans stuff, because they're working the identity politics thing, and to be it would be like some kind of like transphobia if you don't affirm the unique identity of these people who are men in the women's room or something like that. So they don't really have any way to speak clearly about this, and so
like I said,
Republicans can spike the football.
Got to figure out that messaging. And to me, like it's if I was running, I think that it's simple. Like I think the easiest one to push back on is going to be trans in men's sports. So lean into that as your heart stance, right? Where like I would drag heavy on the men and women's sports, and I mean women, like men and women's sports, biological men and women's sports, where I think that most people in general are against that. And you have like some very fringe people, and these are far left, and you don't have to appeal to that far left, and it's okay. You're not going to hurt inside any faction, and you're going to gain way more by not appealing to them, in my opinion. But like you can drag on that, and then you could take moderate positions, right? Where like I would just say, and this is my opinion, like if you're in a space where it is an issue about trans, this, that, and the third, just do family bathrooms.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it's simple. Or non-gendered bathrooms. Like it's such a simple concept. I've been in so many places now where matter of fact, there's a food hall near us right now that does a very simple thing. Like there's like a one communal like where everybody can wash their hands, but all the stalls are individuals, and so it's for anybody. So you ain't got to have a name.
See, I don't like that. I have a wife. I have children.
Mhm.
I don't want any dude.
No, but it's
in it.
I would also say like this space is kind of like a walk through open space. So it's not cut off in a space. It's not cut off in a way that it's closed in, I guess you would say. Like it's kind of like when you're walking around the venue, like you kind of would kind of like imagine porta potties and then a bathroom and how porta potties are set up out in the open. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, did they have? Is there a men's room, women's room option, or is that option taken away?
I can't really remember.
Okay.
Next time I'll go. Damn, I ain't gonna go tomorrow.
I just don't want.
I'll probably go sometime this week, and I can let you know. It's a little food hall around the way, and I just thought that I was like, this is an easy, what's the word? Like compromise on both sides where nobody really is going to care, and it doesn't matter at all. Like it's not an enclosed space. All the bathrooms are isolated, so you don't have to see anybody pee at all. And
right, but the problem with the Democrats is that they are ideologically compromised. Like in the people on the far left, they're gender and sex are not the same thing. And a man who identifies as a woman is a woman, and you could be a woman with a penis or a man with a vagina, and they have completely mixed up this sex gender dichotomy in such a way that they are trying to change society to adapt to that way of seeing the world, which is not possible. So I think they're gonna fumble this bag every time because they're not.
I think they just got it. I think that the majority of America is like this is my take, and I think a majority of America feels the same way. Like I don't care about anything that you do past 18 years old, and it doesn't impact me and my family. Like I don't have to care about what you identify as, like none of those things matter to me.
It only
and
matters
then
to
like
me.
people, I call people by their names.
Right.
Like if I do these things, it doesn't impact me at all. Like if you come up and you say your name is this, and I just call you by your name, guess what? I don't have to play and think about and worry about or anything like that.
Right. It only bothers me if I see a dude walking in the women's room when my daughter is in there or my wife is in there.
Have you seen that happen?
No, I haven't. But
right, I think these are like hyper outlier situations that we've built like a schism over, but aren't even really like things that most people get close to experiencing.
That's true. But the idea is so unsettling that I want to make sure that is not even a thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
oh no, and I get it, and that's why I said like I think that there's easy compromises, and in which, like if all has to happen, like I'm cool with like these like people that like go to your biological bathroom. That's cool, and my other thing is just like if we have like whenever something new gets remodeled. Like how back in the day it was smokers spots inside restaurants and shit like that. And everybody was catching secondhand smoke. But now you don't see no restaurant where you can smoke inside. I think that it is okay if suddenly today we just have family bathrooms. Or one stall or like it doesn't like it to me, most of these things don't really matter as much. Like there's simple solutions. Like if we just really think about it, more times than not, if you go to a lot of places, the men's and the women's bathroom is one stall anyway. And like these are simple things.
Well, I don't know. I know many conservatives who are not going to go for that, but yeah, I think on that one we got to agree to disagree.
Nah, for sure. I'll push play on homie and then we can move on past this topic.
800 members of the D.C. National Guard have been brought into service to provide support for federal law enforcement agencies on the ground. And D.C. is about to see an influx of even more. The governors of Ohio, West Virginia, and South Carolina have all announced they're sending hundreds of members of their National Guards to support the president's efforts to combat crime here in D.C. This is on top of the 800 D.C. National Guard members who are already on the ground here. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen this morning called this an abuse of power.
The National Guard, first of all, is not supposed to engage in any local law enforcement activity. The abuse of power is claiming that this is an emergency. Everybody who's watching what happens knows that this is not an emergency in Washington, D.C.
But former Vice President Mike Pence sided with his former boss.
I think it's important what the president is doing. I fully support it. And I think the American people welcome the president taking decisive action to ensure the streets of our nation's capital are safe.
President Trump only has these emergency powers for 30 days. Any longer, and he'll have to get congressional approval, something that at this point seems unlikely. These are some of the 800 members of the D.C. National Guard that have been brought into service to provide support for federal law enforcement agencies on the ground. And D.C. is about to see an influx of even more.
Oh, it's the same thing.
You're trying to arrest innocent people. What's your purpose? What's your goal? What's the motive? Why won't you show your face? Like, do you look yourself in the mirror and think I did a good job today? On street! Get off our street! Get off our street!
Pete Hegseth now has given the National Guard the go-ahead to start carrying weapons when they are deployed in Washington, D.C. And for those of you who don't know, up until this point, they've actually been unarmed. You see all the photos of them. They're just standing around literally like with their hands in their pockets because they don't even have a weapon on them. But Pete Hegseth now has said, go ahead and carry those bang bangs, boys. And gotta say, that is certainly an escalation. And it will certainly change the vibe, because it's one thing if people are just walking around in vests and in, fatigues and whatnot, and like certainly looks pretty, fucking weird and like a little bit tense. It's another thing entirely when they're carrying, long, what's, across their chest. I mean, it'll certainly change the vibe a lot.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah.
Oh shit! This is what I wanted to show.
Ordering the National Guard in DC
I'll play
to now
this.
carry weapons.
I think this is the turning point where the people of the United States either do something despite the short-term consequences, or there's not going to be another chance to do something in the future.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we have 3 Republican-led states leading a now armed military presence into D.C. to essentially take over the nation's capital. And that's just the start, right? Trump says New York and Chicago are next, and we're hearing reporting out of Fox News and other sources that there's several thousand more National Guard ready to go into other states next. So, this is a hostile military takeover from our own government. And quite frankly, it's basically the start of a civil war. And the only question is, again, whether the American people are going to do something about it or let the country complete its slide into fascism.
What can the American people do to stop this?
Quite frankly, at this point, a general strike and large-scale protests for as long as it takes to cause change to happen, right? That's the only option. There needs to be a full economic shutdown until the powers that be turn on Trump's regime because all their businesses are failing. And pretty much every Democratic leader should be calling for that too. Is it going to be really hard on a lot of people? Absolutely. And there's going to be problems with food scarcity, with money, and all of that, which is why I keep saying that the DNC needs to be the one that organizes this. But regardless of whether the DNC acts or not, the American people need to act, because I don't think we're going to get another opportunity if the Trump administration is allowed to continue this attack on American cities.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I saw that.
Ordering the national.
Okay, talk to me.
Yeah, that when I saw that video, it made me think, okay, I know this is just people on social media talking, but could America really have a civil war behind this deployment of National Guard troops?
Well, I don't know if it'll be because of that, but think about what you was talking about early, where there is there's topics that are almost promoting civil unrest.
Yeah, this is true.
And then the tribal lines are now becoming red and blue.
Right.
Before it was north and south, but it's red and blue. And I think that it just ends up becoming like another interesting piece in the puzzle. I think that maybe A Black was saying it on the show, and kind of was pointing out like it's such a weird concept with Trump, where it's hard to believe that he's an idiot or a genius, but it's weird how shit be lining up. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like there's a space where like you almost want to believe like he's smart as hell, and like he's planning all this shit so strategically because low key a lot of shit is lining up. But then there's a part where like he fumbles over so many different things. It's like he's kind of an idiot. You know what I mean? And like that's the interesting, that's the conundrum of Trump, whether he's like an amazing actor or like he's like clumsily fumbling over like buttons and keeps hitting the right thing. It's just like I said, it's an interesting conundrum.
I think we've been living in a time where politics has taken a center stage in a way that it didn't always. Like it used to be that the president did stuff and it was like in the background. It was like, okay, he signed something or whatever. But it
Yeah.
seems like every day there's a headline. Trump said this, Trump did that. Did you hear what Trump did? He's putting troops here. It's like he's captured so much of the headlines from day to day. Like I wish we could go back to the days where politics was boring, but now it seems to be like.
Yeah, actually, this. How old are you?
I'm in my 30s, late 30s.
All right, cool. So we're close to the same age then.
Yeah.
Do you think a bit of this is just indicative of us getting to the age that we're at now?
You know what? That's a good point. You're right. Yeah, my focus has shifted a lot.
Yeah, and like CNN and all these companies, they've been running the news, and 24-hour news has been a thing and shit. Like I know I grew up in a house where my mother had the news on at like when we woke up to go to school, when she had the I forget what the midday news was, and then she had the 6 o'clock news on. And if I turned off of that to go watch Dragon Ball Z, she was gonna cuss me out. like that also did exist, where she was like probably inside my age range that I'm at right now. And
that's true.
Like
So yeah,
think about that. Like is it like a new hyper focus, or are we just a part of this? Like we've grown into that age range where we care about the shit a lot more. So like that's like, what our algorithm is.
And we turned into our parents, and now we're watching the news.
Yeah, right. Shit, I'm over here in my free time looking at clips of CNN. That is what's happening, right?
You know what? You put it in perspective. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I didn't give a damn about what the president was talking about. Like, who cares? But yeah, when you have responsibilities and you got to plan for, how are we gonna save money? How are we gonna make it to retirement? How are we gonna take vacation this year?
Yeah.
Are we gonna have a war? Like that becomes more important. Yeah.
All these things matter. All right, so I guess it'll be good to shift away from Trump now. So we do have some news on the Target side of the game. I'll play and see what CNN has to say about it. But yeah, I think that it should land us inside an interesting space.
The Target CEO, Brian Cornell, is stepping down after 11 years with the company. His departure, which was widely expected, comes as customers are now turning away from the store. Target's stock is among the worst performing companies in the U.S. right now. The S&P 500 this year showing it's way down more than 20%, I should say, to be specific. Let's go live right now to CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. Vanessa, what else led to Cornell's exit?
Yeah, the CEO is out. The CEO is now stepping in. Brian Cornell, who has led the company for more than a decade through some of the company's best years, but most recently through some of the worst years, really not able to dig the company out of the hole. So now you have Michael Fidelki, the CEO, stepping into that position on February 1st. Investors were hoping that Target was going to bring in a fresh face, but the company said after an exhaustive search, they're going with one of their own. You can see shares of Target stock right now down about 11% earlier today. 8% down right now. This is also because of slumping sales. They reported another quarter of sales decline. You have customers pulling back, but you also had in the beginning of this year, Wolf, a boycott by many of Target's core customers who were really upset with the brand after they rolled back their DEI initiatives. The brand was known for being LGBTQ focused and putting a lot of that branding front and center. They pulled back on that, and then consumers pulled back. Also, tariffs, headwinds facing the company. Listen to outgoing CEO Brian Cornell on what happened with tariffs with the company.
As one of the largest importers in the country, the prospect of higher tariffs meant we were facing some major financial and operational hurdles as we entered the year. This was further complicated by the multiple changes in tariff policy that have been announced and implemented as the year has progressed.
And that was Brian Cornell earlier this morning on the company's earnings call. Now, listen, the company did say they were able to mitigate as best they could these tariff pressures, but 50% of the inventory that they sell is manufactured abroad. So that's being hit with tariffs. Also, 50% of all inventory they sell is discretionary, and that's usually where consumers pull back first. So a double whammy for the company there. Target saying that they're hoping to turn things around in the next couple years and looking to do so, Wolf, with this new incoming CEO.
All right. And I did have one more. Let's see what we can get through with this.
Retailer Target is reeling. Sales have stalled, its stock price has plunged, and the company faces growing backlash months after rolling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, initiatives. A boycott led by our next guest slowed store traffic nationwide and is among the factors that pushed longtime CEO Brian Cornell to step down after 11 years. Now, Target is scrambling to reset its image and strategy. We're joined now by Pastor Jamal Bryant of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia, who spearheaded that boycott. Pastor Jamal Bryant, thank you for being with us.
My privilege. Thank you.
Before we get your reaction to the change in leadership at Target, I do want to ask, why focus on Target when a number of retailers and corporations from Walmart to McDonald's have rolled back their DEI initiatives? Why single out Target when this appears to be a broader corporate retreat?
After the inauguration of President Trump, 23 corporations backtracked away from diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we thought it prudent to just go after one at a time. The African-American community spends upwards of $12 million a day at Target. And so we thought that the one that was the most trafficked should be the focus of our media attention.
Do you see the stepping down of Target's longtime CEO as a direct result of your campaign? And what do you expect from the company's new leadership?
The reality is it's not stepping down, it's stepping aside. He's being replaced by the COO, and he has now moved upwards as the chair of the board. So it's really rewarding of bad behavior. We're really disappointed, but we hope and we are hopeful that there'll be a change of perspective when it comes to DEI for the company.
It's striking that Target hasn't reinstated its DEI program, even as it struggles with declining sales, sluggish foot traffic. What does that tell you about the current climate and how corporations are valuing diversity today when faced with the political pressure?
I think that diversity is in as much danger as democracy is. The president of Target, as well as Walmart and Amazon, met with the president back in February. And I think that they have held on to his admonishment more than what the consumers are clamoring to say. And so I think it's unfortunate that it has to go this far and this long.
I reached out to Target ahead of this conversation, and while the outgoing CEO wasn't made available, the company pointed us to his recent op-ed where he highlights Target's $2 billion investment in Black-owned businesses, more than doubling the number of Black-owned brands on its shelves, supporting more than 500 entrepreneurs, completing a $100 million investment in Black-led community organizations. Why do you see those efforts as insufficient?
I think it's insufficient because they produce no receipts. $2 billion, and yet they have not been
those shelves supporting.
$2 billion in Black-owned businesses, more than doubling the number of Black-owned businesses on our shelves this year. Okay, all right. Okay, through our accelerator, we support it.
More than 500 entrepreneurs, completing a $100 million investment in Black-led community organizations. Why do you see those efforts?
We're completing over $100 million investment in Black-led.
So is Essence combined with Target? Are they partners? What is the relationship with Essence and Target? Because I know they were both boycotted this year.
Essence Fest. Well, was Essence Fest really boycotted, or was it like some Tariq Nasheed people that was like celebrating the fact that the festivals wasn't doing good this year?
Okay, yeah, maybe that's what it was. There was a lot of talk about Essence and what it means, and
I know. I remember the conversation. I just think that so much of it was like, what do they call it? Monday morning quarterbacking.
Okay.
Like, yeah. I don't know of a lot of people that were like intentionally boycotting Essence Fest. As much as once the numbers came out, they was like, hey, well, you see that they got a foreign CEO. Hey, you see that they did that. That's what I've seen, but I could be wrong. Maybe you have
No, I think you're right. You're right. It was after they saw the changes that the lady made or whatever, then they didn't like it, and then everything was wrong. Yeah,
that's when it seemed like it. Yeah, but I don't know. It seems like there's some version of a partnership, or they paid for that op-ed, or I don't know. But those are interesting numbers. I guess I'm interested to hear his response to it.
I think it's insufficient because they produce no receipts. $2 billion, and yet they have not been forthcoming as to what entities were the recipients of it. We asked them
Oh, there you go. All right, fair.
to lay out where did they make the investment. They said because of privacy, they couldn't release it. We'd love to put it on. But if black companies or black banks were the recipients, they would be clamoring to announce it. And yet we're in the silence of the lambs. Nobody can attest to the graciousness that they are claiming to represent.
Why, in your view, does Target owe Black Americans anything beyond what it already?
Especially if you're saying the word 2 billion. I mean, a lot of niggas or a couple really big checks been wrote that they should be clamoring to come out and announce.
Already provides as a public company that employs and serves millions of Americans of all races.
It is one of the lead employers of African Americans. They are the beneficiaries of African American consumption. When George Floyd died, we didn't protest, we didn't march, didn't boycott. Out of their own will, they made the pledge of $2 billion. And then it stalemated. It was supposed to be turned over to us July 31st, and we're still not seeing anything. We are reasonable and amenable to a meeting to be able to see it in private, but none of those requests have been responded to.
What's the end game if Target does not meet your requests?
Then they will continue to hemorrhage. And I think with 9.7% of foot traffic being slowed down, online sales being slowed down, the stock continuing to plummet, the valuation has dropped by $12 billion. But I think that it's time now for the shareholders to make their voice clear on what is needed and necessary. The Montgomery bus boycott went for a year and a day, and this is just our 5th month. And so I think it would be advantageous of them to meet and see how it is that we can reconcile so that the company can go forward and so that the community can continue to rise.
You know, given the parallel you raised to the Montgomery bus boycott, given the impact of this boycott in influencing a major corporation, how do you see yourself leveraging this kind of organizing power on other issues?
Well, this is the first real organizing power of Black economic strength in 70 years. And I think a lot of corporations are sitting back waiting to see what will be the outcome. And that's why this is so critical and so important. And this generation, quite frankly, needs a victory to know that our collective works are not in vain, but can really make an impact and make a difference.
Pastor George.
I'm not mad at it. Talk to me, Chuck. What do you take from this? Chuck, you hear me? All right, I think Chuck is on break right now for us. But nonetheless, I think that this was interesting. Where I will definitely say that I was a late adopter to any version of this whole Target thing, just because I've been around for a while, and one thing that I've seen is a bunch of boycotts and movements come and go, in which there has been a lack of participation, and because of that, like it eventually makes me lose interest. And like, I'm gonna throw it to Chuck, and then I'll continue going on. Chuck, what did you take from it?
I missed like maybe 30 seconds of that, but from what I took from it, he is skeptical about Target's the amount of money that Black business actually received from Target, and from what I gather is that the Target's commitment to the Black community wasn't fully shown. So he's unhappy with Target's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and he's happy with the CEO moving aside, but he didn't really get fired or anything. He just took a higher position. So
I don't think he's even happy with it. He kind of looks at it as a promotion of, what was the word that he used? Maybe a promotion of negligence. Like he's getting rewarded for bad behavior. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah.
And so do you think that this is like for its 5th month? Again, when you run down the numbers, they lost 12 billion. They've lost 10% in foot traffic. Stock prices are down. Like, would you say that this is, and what his words was, the first exercise of Black economic strength in 70 years?
No, I think once you have poor performance from a CEO, the board members are going to move to replace that CEO with somebody who can turn it around, because their stock value is losing money, and it's people are in business to make money. So if you have a CEO who is losing your company money, you have to replace him with somebody else who has different ideas, who can steer the ship into another direction that's going to make more money. It's all about profits at the end of the day. So I don't know if these.
Would you say that this is? Do you think that move is done in response to the boycott?
To be fair, I don't know. I don't. It's not the boycott that is solely responsible for that loss in foot traffic. I think they mentioned something about some LGBTQ items that were unpopular, and then the customers fell back after that.
Oh
I
no,
think-
no, no. What they said is that like Target has been LGBTQ friendly for a while.
Right.
And then with the pullback of DEI, they've retracted that.
Oh, okay, okay. So okay, I misheard that. Okay. So yeah, so well, that's a good question then. Like, did their sales slump after they pulled back the DEI?
And that's so what is it? Correlation and causation aren't necessarily aligned, but so far it does seem like there's correlation to the causation. I know that I wasn't specifically, and I guess, damn it, what's Shorty that she does like children books, but she also got, or not children, she got a children's show. She's an older lady, and she has stuff on Target's shelves as well. Tabitha Brown, that's her name.
Mhm.
I was listening to her talk, and she was speaking how like shit, damn, like my product has been hit heavily through this boycott. And if you remember, like January, she came out and kind of like was giving her spiel about it, her take of it. And this is like more of like the updated version in which she said, and this is kind of I do align a little bit with it, where she was saying how, generally speaking, if there had been early on outlined a plan of this is what we're doing and we need everybody to get on board, it'd have been easier for everybody to get on board. Where with the Target thing, I think most people, I know I did, like they heard it like after it was going on. So it's like, bro, what do we boycotting Target for? And like that in itself, like when you hear about it retroactively, it hits a little bit different. But what she said is that like shit, my sales were definitely impacted. And she knew some people that had been taken off the shelves because they were Black entrepreneurs in Target who no longer were getting the sales numbers that were representative of them to be kept on the shelves. And the thing was like, hey, like I'm good and I'm cool. I just wish y'all would let me know in advance, so then I could have properly supported the whole thing. But yeah, I guess like from hearing her give her spiel and looking at the numbers and seeing it, it does seem as though there is some impact that is happening to Target. And I personally didn't think that, like we would have moved the needle. And in my opinion, I'm actually kind of like, oh damn, that's kind of what's up. Like this boycott is a tangible piece of proof that at least at the moment can be held on. Of like you've seen a CEO drop down, you've seen stock prices, you've seen multiple different little things against a company that I didn't think personally we would have been able to have the impact on.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it through that lens, yeah, I mean that it Black people not shopping at a store can cause a significant decrease in profitability. So yeah,
And like I said, I know I wasn't a believer at first. I'll be first to let you know, but it seems as though they've moved the needle a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess got a few guys inside the chat right now, but this is probably what some of y'all guys was waiting for. The FBA's spokesman, the writer of the code, Tariq Nasheed himself has he's arrived on what do they call him? DJ Vlad, Officer Vlad. There's a lot of names, but he has arrived on Vlad, and he's spreading the word about the FBAs. And I guess I'll push play and kind of see if there's some stopping points, some interesting stopping points here. I think he's done 2 parts so far, so I'll watch a little bit and catch up and see what's going on in these FBA streets.
All right, here we go. Tariq Nasheed. Welcome.
Why Tariq got that suit on? That's crazy. Oh, wait.
Welcome back to Vlad TV.
Back, yes, indeed.
This is not a total surprise because this kind of came together based on some comments that I made about foundational Black Americans and some of the situations that are happening right now with like a boycott with African hair shops and so forth. And I made some comments. I just want to apologize for the comments that I made. At the end of the day, I felt like it was coming from a good place, but I'm not Black. And I think I overstepped my bounds.
As you do sometimes.
As I do sometimes. Yeah. And my man Willie D actually called me up. And during the course of the conversation, I said, well, you know who would be a good person to get into this conversation was my man Tariq Nasheed. You know, in terms of the FBA guys that I know, he's the biggest one, and he's you know, a regular guest on the show. Matter of fact, let me call up Willie real quick. Let me get him on the phone. Hold on a second. Willie, hold on one second. I got Tariq right here.
What's up, Will?
What's up, Tariq?
How you doing, bro?
Shit, I can't call it. I might stall.
There it is. Like you out there exercising.
No, man, I'm just in the backyard.
Okay.
Cool. Should turn the volume a little bit?
Turn the volume. Okay, yeah. So I'm here with Vlad. Vlad wanted to give you a call real quick. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
so yeah, Vlad was saying that he was making comments about the lineage, and y'all corresponded, and you said that it would be a good idea for him to kind of reach out to me and get me in the conversation.
That was actually my idea.
It was your idea.
Yeah,
okay.
It was my idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I concur.
Okay. Okay.
You got a lot of knowledge about this. You know, what I was telling Vlad is that I understand both sides. I personally don't believe that we're going to be as successful as we want to be if we don't figure out a way to come together. And that's not just the diaspora. That's even on the ground right here in the U.S. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to figure this shit out, bro, because this is the reason why they've been.
I do agree with Willie D's initial statement, but we'll keep going.
So successful and keeping us from reaching our optimum in the first place. You know, but people, having said that, people got to understand that everything that they get from this country, people that want to come here so bad, the reason why they want to come here so bad is because of the opportunities that we made for them.
Right.
It was
right.
They're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. Standing on the shoulders of the people that came before us post-slavery. Right. And they're standing on our shoulders because we keep this raggedy motherfucker together. You know what I'm saying? Like we are the glue.
Right.
So my thing is that there's strength in numbers, but only if the numbers are not divided. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And we have to understand that all the lineages has to be respected. You got to respect everybody's lineage. You can still come together, but we still respect people and their individual lineage. We respect our Jamaican brothers. We respect the Nigerian brothers. We respect everybody.
That's not true what he's saying.
He doesn't, and we're asking the same. We want people to give us the same respect.
You said what?
He says he respects the Jamaicans. He respects his Nigerians. That's not actually true if you actually listen to his rhetoric regarding tethers and things of that nature. But go ahead.
Oh no, I get it. Like I understand. Like I said, I don't indulge in the conversations a lot because I just think that they're fairly divisive. But like to me, if you run off in like the amount of insults that he'll run off inside, like anytime, like who used to send me the videos? Maybe Trey used to send me the videos. And I try and watch some of it. I really couldn't make it past too many of them because like it just becomes like insult driven. Your country is this and is bad this way, and this specific racial stereotype to African people, and
yeah,
like this shit just sounds like what racist white people would say.
Right.
And so for me, like it's just hard for me personally to engage inside any of it because it just seems anti-black in general. But like I hear, like, if it's hard to say I respect. It's like saying I respect black people, but then also saying y'all come from a history of, and then running down a bunch of racial tropes. Like, well, it's kind of hard to say that because you just ran these things down. If, like, say if I was like a white man or something like that, like it'd be hard for me to believe that. And that's the same thing, in my opinion, with him saying like, I believe, or what do you say? I respect.
I respect all these lineages, is what he said.
Lineages.
When
You take
that's
your time
clearly
to
not
have
true.
very specific insults to these lineages that
Right.
only come from like hyper focusing and researching those lineages. It's
Right.
like, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure he's gonna put on the good hat right now. So I'll continue to watch. Let's see.
And not try to rename us and reclassify us in their own terms. So we are taking the lead and the initiative to let people know what our lineage is. And that's all it is. It's not about dividing. It's not about divisiveness. It's not about division. We're just letting people know what our lineage is and how it should be respected. And we are going to gatekeep it so that we're not constantly exploited. So that's what I'm gonna break down to Brother Vlad today. I'm gonna break that down to Vlad.
Exactly. That's what's popping right there.
Yeah.
You said a mouthful.
Yes, sir.
Break it down. I know you got this, man. I know you got it.
Yes, indeed. All right, brother. Good to talk to you. I'm gonna holler at you in a minute. All right, brother. All right. Here we go. Got it.
Well, look, Willie's someone who I respect.
It's interesting because like he knows how to, like, what would you call this? This is like him code switching right now. So right now, he's, in my opinion, it seems like he's gonna probably attempt to paint like the conversation that he's saying as more so like, I just want our individual ethnogenesis to be recognized,
Right.
and respected.
He's gonna frame it. He's gonna frame it in just a certain way.
Yeah, and he's kind of like going. I imagine he's going to ignore, unless Vlad comes with the receipts, and which we'll have to see. All of the antagonizing and tether talk and all these different shit that he does. We'll see.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
A very close friend of mine. Yeah, very good friend of mine. In fact, when I addressed the whole Farrakhan misquote, I purposely flew down to Houston to do his show to actually address that. So when he called me about this, I took that phone call very seriously. And like I said, of course, the phone call, I said, let me include you in the conversation. At the end of the conversation, I said, well, let me bring Tariq on my show to publicly address it as opposed to this private conversation. Let me learn something. Let me apologize for overstepping my bounds.
That nigga Vlad can learn how to apologize. Because
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay. Who is Tariq to rename 43 million African Americans? Like, my mother's African American. All my aunts and uncles, have 9 of them, are all African American. Nobody calls himself FBA. Nobody calls himself a Native American. It seems like what Tariq is attempting to do is to rename a people who are not in the market for a new name. Like, he's trying to speak for 43 million people who are perfectly fine being African American or Black. Like, what's wrong with being Black or African American? Why does everybody have to be FBA? Is I guess my question.
All right. So you said, why does everybody? All right. So I guess I can try to answer in a couple ways. So going at the last thing that you said that why does everybody have to be FBA? I think that that's probably so. Maybe I'll give like an initial statement or premise that I kind of stand on. Like, I do think that there is credence to some parts of FBA, right? Which I would say a part of FBA that does hold credence, in my opinion, is that it is okay for specifically Black Americans that are descendants of slavery to have their own separate ethnogenesis, especially here in America.
Agreed.
I think that is fair, in which one could say African American might be too overly encompassing of everybody, where it doesn't identify that specific ethnogenesis. So I think that that's a point that I can agree on, and I think that typically when I hear most people, like whether whichever side that you're on, there most people are cool with it. Same way there's Jamaicans, there's Ghanaians, there's Nigerians, there's whoever you're from. Like being able to identify specifically what Black Americans are that isn't also a part of like a group amalgamation. I think that there is benefit to that.
Right.
And so yeah, I do think that that's cool. I also let me see. What else did you say? Like you
Okay.
have a bunch of people in him being
How
the person
do
that
you deal with the fact that most African Americans or Black Americans have never heard of FBA? It's really just
well, but now I think now we're getting into like naming and terminology, and I think that this is now where it becomes a little bit different. And like you asked, in essence, what gives him precedent to be able to name or rename an entire group?
right. Is he a Martin Luther King figure? What is an
No, and to me, like this is where I don't necessarily care what the name is, whether it's FBA, ADOS. Like if we can collectively decide whatever a name is that can now be disassociated from like all the trauma and that not trauma, but the turmoil that comes with associating with FBA. I think that would be cool. Like, what is it? FBA. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they say that they came from like Jesse Jackson or some shit like that?
Well, they say that African American.
African American. That's what I meant to say.
Right, but when you research it, it seems like that term was around like in the 1800s. There's African American was coined like hundreds of years ago, but it just was made popular during that time and was adopted as the racial category for Black people.
That's one of the bad FBA talking points. And
Right.
So saying all that to say, nonetheless, with the FBA and like Tariq being the spokesperson for it, and if that terminology should be representative of people that have never heard of it or heard of him, I'm not hung up on the term as much as the concept. And so whatever we as like people agree to be the collective term, I'm cool with that. And that could be FBA, that could be ADOS, that could be whatever the thing is. And to me, it'd just be speaking to like the specific lineage. And so like when I have the conversation, I would just like right now, I'm almost at default having to explain the concept more than say a name, because the ideologies that come with the name FBA or ADOS are so loaded now. And to me, like that's more so what the issue is. Like there's a bunch of loaded intuition that comes with like saying FBA that comes from Tariq, that like I don't specifically use the terminology. But I don't disagree with the best faith version of what the ideology entails.
But in March of 2024, the OMB, the Office of Monetary Budget, the people who do the census, they had a series of conferences and conventions with people to discuss, the this racial category. Should there be any updates? Should FBA be added as a subset of the Black or African American, or should it be its own category? And what was ultimately decided is that Black or African American by definition, according to the OMB, refers to anybody from any of the Black ethnic groups of Africa, but this includes African Americans. Like, so African American is a racial category, but it's also an ethnic category for Black people. So they did not add FBA or ADOS to their category. They just expanded. Black African American includes, American. It includes any Black American, but it also includes people who immigrated here from any of the Black ethnic groups of Africa, including Jamaicans, Ethiopians, Somalis, Nigerians, all these other groups. So it seems like the OMB has rejected delineation. They heard all sides, and they cited reasons why it would be confusing to disaggregate the group in this way when it comes to the census and counting Black people, and they have essentially just put it to the side. Um, it's not included. So if delineation is going to happen, where will it be registered? Will it be registered in the OMB and the census, or is there another federal agency that registers delineation? I guess it's a question.
Well, I guess like to I guess take a step backwards. I wasn't specifically speaking about, like, I imagine federal recognition would come way after collective recognition of like this concept of Black people being its own specific ethnogenesis. And I don't think that the movement's strong enough for that to have been passed right now. I think maybe if we talk about like the next.
I think you're muted. I'm not hearing anything. Say, I don't know if it's me, but I don't hear anything at all.
No, can you hear me now?
Oh, I hear you now. Yeah.
All right,
Go
cool,
ahead.
cool. Yeah, that was on me. But damn, what was that? None of this. What we talking about? Delineation.
Delineation. You're not sure if it's reached a certain threshold where it could be federally recognized or something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're speaking about how it's not recognized within the census currently, and they just did like a symposium, and they decided against it and keeping, in essence, like the amalgamation of all Black people as being the collective of Black and or African American. And I understand that, and I think that those are like, that's a different statement than what's being fought for, where I don't know if right now what the current federal guidelines is a part of at least my specific idea of understanding and the attempt to recognize specifically Black descendants of slavery in America today.
Understood. And I agree that descendants of chattel slavery are a separate ethnic group of Black people in general. So I'm not disagreeing with that. But what's confusing to me is, how would that be registered? Oh, not only how will it be registered, but is that just a subset of the Black African American category? Like how would you disaggregate FBA from Black African American?
Oh, you're all right. So I see what you're getting at. Like you're trying to, because of, help me if I like you. I imagine y'all have like had this debate and y'all went further back into it. So currently, right now, inside like the category that is listed as Black, is it like what they do with like Latinx or Latinx and like Hispanics, where all of them are grouped inside like this specific thing? If you fall under this, but then within that, there's a bunch of subsects.
Exactly. Well,
But
the FBA just be another one, is what I'm saying.
They all check Hispanic, non-white, pretty much.
Right.
Is that and that's what you're asking? If even through the recognition of Black Americans inside America, would it not just fall inside the overall broad category of Black?
Right. Well,
So they have Jamaican Americans, Haitian Americans, XYZ.
Are FBA still Black at the end of this whole process?
Right. That's the easy way to say what I was saying. A bunch of words to say. In my opinion, I would think so. Yes. Like I don't think that the census, like I think we're far removed from thinking that the census is going to have Black people or like Black Americans as an i.e. FBA, and then Black or like whatever else they like. My bad, FBA and then Black. I don't think that that's like feasible inside any version of the word, because they don't do the same thing with white people.
Right.
Like once you're white, they encompass all the European countries. You're just white, especially if you're second generation. They're like you're just white. So no, I don't think that if you're asking, so help me make sure that I understand what you're asking. Are you asking me, will there be an FBA bubble to check, and then there'll also be a black bubble to check, and these are
Right.
separate from each other?
Like what?
No,
Yes.
I don't think that there will be an FBA bubble and then a black bubble. I think that the win that they might get and be looking for is that inside the parentheses of black, FBA, or like whatever terminology would be within that.
Okay. Understood. So FBA is
Don't
just
quote me though.
no, no. But
I ain't on none of them channels.
right.
To me, that would be the most logical, but sometimes they don't be moving logically, so I can't
Right, but when you encounter FBAs, they have very different opinions of what FBA means and what delineation means,
Oh yeah,
and things of that nature. So it's all over the place. But I will say that there was a delineation. Middle Eastern people from the Middle East and North Africa used to be categorized in the white. They used to be white people, but now they have a separate. They're called Middle Eastern and North African is its own thing. So it's like they
Are you
have
saying Middle Eastern used to be classified as white?
Middle Easterners, like the people in the north part of Africa, they from all these Muslim countries,
Yeah.
they used to be part of the white people, but they have somehow delineated themselves to be MENA, Middle Eastern, North African. They're their own separate.
But I also would say that I think that these are their own literal different phenotypical different people.
True.
Like that's like I don't know. I think that in the senses we're still gonna have Asian. They're not gonna separate Chinese and Japanese and Vietnamese. They're not gonna do that anytime soon.
True.
Like with them, they're their own literal specific different group of people though. Where they don't look white, they're not culturally European inside any version of the form. Like phenotypically, they're not white. Like I think that that's a just delineation because of they've never been said thing. And the only reason that white people would have been grouping them would have been like a pure numbers based thing because of nowhere, anywhere are they recognized as white.
Good point.
That'd be best I could say. It's just I'll try and play a little bit of this last Tariq Nasheed thing that he has on Vlad. I think they're only on episode 2. I imagine this is gonna get interesting, but we'll see.
Now let me ask you, Vlad, what gave you such a negative disposition about what foundational Black Americans mean?
I don't think it was a negative approach to it. It was just an approach of unity as opposed to separation. And I just felt like as someone who has, half Black kids myself, I want them to embrace everybody and I want everyone to embrace them.
Right.
And I felt that in this particular situation, I was seeing kind of fault on both sides. I wasn't saying, oh, this group is wrong and this group is right. I just felt like a division with two people who from the outside looking in America look the same to people, to white people and to the police and so forth, to people who actually have negative intentions. Certain people have negative intentions towards them. And I just felt like when I heard about the whole, the boycotting of the African hair shops, I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, that shit's dumb as hell. I'm not even gonna lie. Like the idea of boycotting Black or African people is fucking stupid.
That was
like people boycotting African people. It's just stupid as hell to me.
That was dumb as hell, actually. That was a little bit infuriating, to be honest. That didn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, my POV. I'll drop a call in if we got any of y'all guys in here. But that shit's fucking stupid. Like their impact on anything is so minuscule that like for you to focus on them is stupid. Why not boycott the Indian? The Indians and the Asians that are literally exploiting the community. Why not boycott them first? Outside of like the people that have such a minimal impact on your actual real. It's just I don't want to drag too much on these niggas, but I'll push play.
it just didn't sit right on me.
Yeah,
and maybe because I didn't understand the whole thing.
Right, and that was basically one person on TikTok.
Yeah, but it went very viral.
It did go viral.
It did go
And you
viral.
know why it went viral? It went viral because a lot of African and Caribbeans, they started using that as an excuse to attack Black Americans. So they made thousands of videos like, "Oh, the Black Americans ain't shit to these things." It was a whole bunch of that. That made it go viral. So yeah,
so it was going back and forth.
It was going back and forth, but it started up with one person talking about doing a boycott, and then that was the excuse for everybody to just kind of dogpile on the situation and blow it up even more. All right, so Vlad, you mentioned your children,
yes,
babies, and part of their lineage. Do they come from? Is that lineage part of an immigrant background?
I don't think so. I believe it's mostly Black American background.
Okay.
Yeah.
Southern Black American?
I believe so.
I
believe so.
You would know.
I believe so. Well, I think it's mostly, well, depends on how far back you go. Like, I think it's mostly East Coast, like New York and so forth. But, depending on how back you, how back you go, how back you go,
kind of Freudian
how back you
slip is
go,
that,
you've always seen kind of the immigration, the movement from the southern states to the northern
right.
states.
Yeah, they were.
So I know, because I know I think they do have some relatives like in Florida and stuff like that. So
is it possible that somebody they got Caribbean ancestry? Is it possible?
There's always a tether test.
Okay,
but no, they haven't done.
You said what?
If you notice, there's always a tether test. Like there's always a
yeah.
Okay, where are you from? Where are your people from? You see what I'm saying?
Far back.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you got tether kids in that.
Yeah.
God,
Go ahead.
Damn, bro. Like, yeah, I'm not interested. It's just it's a juvenile way that I know I've never engaged with Black people inside this way. And
this is not how Black people interact in offline. This is not. I've never. This is.
Do you know Alex? Alex that was on the show.
I think I've interacted with him before, but I don't know him.
Yeah, well, not like know him, but like I don't know if you've seen him on the show before. He was one of the characters that was earlier inside the seasons. He's popped in maybe once or twice since. But like the reality is that like me and him worked together for like 3 or 4 years. Like we might have been like the one of 4 or 5 Black people inside the office. And like we literally hit it off, and like like we worked downtown, so like we had to walk to the parking lot to where our car was, and back and forth, and like we was inside the same department, so like we chopped it up often. And it wasn't until we got on here, and then we got on the topic of immigrants and shit like that, that I learned that he wasn't like quote unquote FBA or anything like that. So I'm saying all that to say, like as a regular Black person, that's not the way that I engage or interact with you. Like we're going to engage in like all the different things that us Black people talk about,
right?
And like the culture that is Black, and like we did that all the time, but there was never like, well, where are your people from? That's not like, I don't know. I've never known that to be a way to have conversation and dialogue with anybody.
This has never been a thing in at least in my family. I have a lineage that goes back to chattel slavery. My mother's a Black American, and we trace my grandmother's lineage to a specific plantation in Raleigh, North Carolina, the Midway Plantation. So I do have slave ancestry, and I go to family reunions. I'm at the cookout, and people know that my mother married a Nigerian, but nobody looks at me funny. Nobody says that, hey, aren't you half tether or something like that? This is not a thing.
Those terms have not made it anywhere close to there.
Right. But it's only in online spaces that you encounter these tests. It's only Tariq Nasheed and his followers that that go through all of this. This is why I think that this is a negative thing. Like, imagine if this didn't just exist online, this would polarize, the entire diaspora. It would polarize Black people in this country. It would not be a beneficial thing. This is why I'm against FBA. I think when I see FBA ideology online, these are Black identity extremists. These are people who want to divide the world into FBA and non-FBA, and kind of have antagonism toward people who are non-FBA. And I don't see how that is a winning strategy for anything. Go ahead.
I, I get you. I think that it's like it's a very nuanced. Like I said, I can break down the parts of the FBA ideology that I do agree with.
Right.
And then there's the parts that I disagree with. And my thing is that I'm not attached to a name either. So like I only care about like the concept. There's certain parts of the concept that I can't agree with. I also do understand that there's a version of like the conversation that's explicitly loaded with a bunch of intuition and the derogatory back and forths. Like once you get into like ADOS and FBAs and XYZ, and which I personally like, I just don't really care to engage with. And so like I said, I would just rather describe what I'm speaking about than have to be lumped in and or engage inside like the explosive back and forth that happens with all like, yeah, just with the same conversation that niggas talk in circles about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, yeah, I'll push play.
DNA test and so forth.
No, you don't even have to do DNA tests. Never been to a family reunion? No. Okay, it's probably possible there's some kind of immigrant background.
Possibly.
That nigga crazy.
Do you hear the smugness about this whole line of questioning?
You ever been to a family reunion? It's possible.
Listen to this guy.
Why would that be? It's so crazy to me. That's hilarious.
Because you would know.
Not I specifically know.
Okay.
But no, they haven't done DNA tests and so forth.
No, you don't even have to do DNA tests. Never been to a family reunion? No. Okay.
Yeah, you ain't got to do a DNA test. Go by hearsay. Fuck it. What the fuck is it?
It's probably possible there's some kind of immigrant background.
Possibly.
It's
Yeah.
possible.
And I'm an immigrant myself.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And that's the thing. What makes a foundational Black American is that we don't have immigrant lineage. That's the thing. That's what makes you a foundation. It's not a group. It's not an organization. It's not something that you join. It's acknowledging the people who are literally the foundation of this nation.
Can I say something here?
I have no.
I don't. This is one key point that I think is a major point of contention with FBAs. They say that they are indigenous to America. They say that they don't have any immigrant lineage in America, but slavery does not make you indigenous. My family, my lineage in chattel slavery in America, those people ultimately came from Africa. So you cannot say that you are not an immigrant when you are forcibly assimilated here from Africa. And I think this is a major point of contention whenever I discuss FBA. FBA say that they're not immigrants when you clearly immigrated here from Africa. So you cannot be indigenous. Do you understand? Like this indigenous rhetoric is something that doesn't make sense in the light of understanding that
Well, all right, so
brought here.
I guess there is this conversation has a bunch of layers to it. One, I guess the indigenous part. I'll address that part first. Like I'm not. Yeah, I don't believe in like that whole indigenous thing. Like the Black indigenous, the Black Indian. There's no factual evidence that I have ever seen presented that I can be like, yes, there were Black people like us running around here.
Sorry, there were Afro-Indigenous. There were Afro-Indigenous. I'm sorry. There were slaves who did mate with Native Americans and produced offspring.
No, but that's different. That's complete. That's a different concept.
Okay,
these are Africans that made it with indigenous people. And so now you have a mixed lineage that's different than being indigenous.
Correct.
Which would mean that you were here prior to colonization. You was here prior to like any of those things. Like this is a different. I don't think that anybody would argue that like since Black people got here, there's been like some interbreeding that has happened between Blacks and every race that's been here.
Correct.
And so, like, I think that doesn't mean indigenous, though. Like, that means interbreeding, like, I don't want to use interbreeding because that sounds like some dog shit, but like, but in essence, there's been race mixing,
right?
Where indigenous denotes the fact that we were here before.
Exactly.
And I've not seen any evidence of that. And to me, if like your best evidence is a picture off of Google that has like a red-skinned person on it, and you're saying, hey, this picture was drawn in 15 something of this like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is like the barrier of like evidence to me for that is crazy.
Yeah.
And like, again, I always challenge people, like, I'm not a know-it-all in the sense that I am stricken by my beliefs that it has to be right. I just challenge people to tell me where I'm wrong at. And if I'm wrong, show it to me and I can adjust my beliefs. And like, because I'm more so like a pursuer of facts. And so I've yet to get the facts of anything outside of like these loosely tied together string of like thoughts and events. And hey, they had this law that was written, and we look at the law, it's like, oh no, this wasn't saying that they classified Indians as this. It was saying like it's a bunch of
it's like
weird
a false narrative
rigmarole that ends up being ran around, that if you ever just look up, and I implore anybody, when somebody makes claims, ask them for verification, because typically they don't have it, and all they did was regurgitate what they heard somebody else say.
Exactly. They
always ask for verification.
They don't have any primary sources. It's really just, I saw it on a YouTube video and I'm just repeating what somebody else said without critically analyzing it.
Right. And then they want you to take it for face value. And they don't get mad. They probably yell at you because you asked them that. But I guarantee you, if you stick to the point, they will never give you the fact. And that's because they don't have it. And it's just based off hearsay and gossip. And it's not like a factually based concept. My bad. I don't know how we got there, but it typically happens when critiquing. But yeah, that like I said, those are my thoughts.
Okay, yeah.
My family. My mother and father, both lineages come from the South. From the beginning of this country, I can trace my lineage to the mid 1700s on paper, and it goes deeper than that. So that's what we talk about when we mean foundational Black American. We're just acknowledging our lineage and the importance and significance of it in this country, because we are a very unique ethnic group. That doesn't mean that we're better or worse than anybody. We are a unique ethnic group with a very unique history here. And we want people to give that the same respect that we give other people. There's the thing, Vlad, where people want to make us generic Africans. The term African American is a misnomer. That was a term that got popularized in 1988 by Jesse Jackson, the Congressional Black Caucus, and the Democrats. No, we as a group, we never called ourselves African American. I think the term African American was in a book in the 1700s by a Black preacher. I forgot what the guy's name, but that was the only time we would see that term during slavery. That was a term that we generally didn't use. Really, it didn't get popular until the late 80s. And the term was given to us, and that term was given to us to make us comparable to immigrants. It was to say that we're just like an Italian American. We're just like a Mexican
Oh, I think that was you talking about that.
American. So that was to basically almost sanitize our unique history here. And that worked against us. The term African American is a misnomer. Elon Musk is an African American.
Right. You know? South African American.
Yeah, but African American still.
Correct.
There's a lot of people from places like the Sudan and other places who are African Americans. And they have a lot of vitriol towards us here. So the term African American is a misnomer. So we wanted a term that was more indicative of who we were and who we are. And that's where Foundational Black American comes from.
Okay. Who is we? Who is we, though? Like, when he says we, who is this we that he's talking about? Like, who empowered him to say that he speaks for everybody? This is what is confusing to me. My mother, my uncles, nobody's ever heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just talking,
I get it. I'm not specifically a big Tariq guy. I do shout him out. Like he was one of the first guys, maybe like 2011, 12ish. And the Hidden Color series, I thought that was good. And it opened my eyes to a bunch of different things. Hidden Colors 1, 2, and 3, maybe. And you've seen a lot of prominent Black thought leaders come out of the space from the documentary. But once I started listening to him and his shows, even back then, this might have been 2015, between 2015 and 2016. And like his approach to the conversation, I thought he was a way more serious thought leader than he was once I started listening to him. And I was like, oh, shit be just games with you. And I kind of like moved away from him at that point. And because like all he was joking and it was games a lot. Even though like this was during the time that he was kind of on like the Pan-African wave. And I think because he was like about to start campaigning to make the Haiti film, and I don't know, he did the buck breaking thing and like all those shits. And like like I said, I'm saying all that to say I'm not the biggest Tariq guy. When it comes down to him specifically being a spokesperson for Black people, I think when he says we, he's just talking about like his tribe of people that listens to him, and like his tribe of people, like the people that goes to the rallies or be on the internet inside his chat and converse and put like the FBA moniker before their names and shit like that.
Okay, but one strategy question. What is it? How does roasting immigrants on social media and having a periodic show on Twitter, how does that advance reparations? Like, are there any FBA senators, congressmen? Is there a bill that's going to be put in Congress? Like, how is FBA?
When I ask these exact same questions, we're going on like a year of it, and this is why, like I said, I've backtracked it from like necessarily caring about the conversation as much. Right now he's relevant because he's on Vlad.
I got you.
But every time I had these conversations, they would just ask for my people from.
I got
then
you.
I'd be like, oh, all right. Like, we're not even like having real conversations anymore.
Right.
And the thing is, I just came from a family reunion with my people inside Clinton, South Carolina. Like, I know where my people are from.
Right.
Like we can trace it. I can trace both sides of my family to North Carolina and South Carolina, but that being the pushback, and then it never being like your questions that you're asking, because they're valid ones. Like I've asked a year ago, how does delineation strengthen the fight to pass legislation?
Right.
But then the reality is that when you unpack it, most of these people don't understand and have a plan for legislation. And then it's kind of like you get shamed into like, boy, you sounding off cold because you're asking questions. It's almost like what they did to Black kids when you was in school. And if you ask too many questions, like, oh, you asking too many questions, you might be, the ops. You might be, a little weird, or you might be retarded or some shit like that. And it's like, right, what the fuck are we? What are we engaging in right here?
Right. They just shut down the question. I got you.
Yeah. Like it's never like an actual fluent answer. So like I think that in my opinion, most intellectualism dies as soon as certain questions get answered. That's why I'm not a proponent of identity politics, or any of those things, where I think that as soon as the where you from come out, everything dies. Like
That's true.
It's rare for me to hear like a productive conversation happen after that if you don't meet a paper bag test. And I'm not. I don't know. Like it's just like a dumb way for me that, like, for me personally, it sounds like there's some people that really agree with it, and like that's the way to have conversations. For me personally, on an intellectual level, like I think that it's a graveyard.
Yeah.
So I don't really engage with it a lot.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I'm interested to hear what he's going to say next, though. This would be good.
The argument is, well, technically, your people did come from Africa. They didn't immigrate because they wanted to. They were stolen and forced to come over here. But there was a movement from Africa into America. But
damn, my bad. I didn't even answer all the questions. We got stuck on the first part of what I was saying. The second part, I think that with Black people being immigrants, there is a unique claim that I can see a person wiggling, where like immigration in itself happens when you have a country. If America is not a country yet, then it's hard to say that you're an immigrant. As much as like you don't say white people are immigrants, they're founding fathers and shit like that, in which Black people would then have that same claim. if we're getting inside like the technical immigrant, like if you were an immigrant, not an immigrant thing, that'd be my best rebuttal that I could probably give.
Okay, but what is foundational doing in that word? Foundational Black American. What is that? What does foundational mean? Does that mean slave ancestry? In what sense are FBAs foundational?
All right, so this is like right now, this is where I probably have to tag in like somebody else because like I don't be inside like the chat rooms to know exactly what they mean. I don't think I like the 15 something that they say that it is like I can't answer questions for foundational Black Americans.
Okay, my bad.
You know what I'm saying? Because like I'm not versed enough inside like what their ideology is. If you're asking me about Black people being immigrants, and I can answer the question differently.
Okay, yeah. Okay, but immigrants. Okay, if if you're not indigenous to this land, then to me you're an immigrant.
So you look at white people as immigrants,
right? They're not the original people of this land. They kind of just
so from your framing, I can't argue that
Right.
because like that's your framing of it. If everybody's immigrants besides for Native Americans,
Right.
then I guess to me like it becomes a semantical thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
by like your definition, that makes it right. But by my definition, it makes it wrong. But depending on who's working definition at the moment, that's just who's going to be right at the time.
Okay, gotcha.
Happened hundreds of years ago. So that's why you're differentiating from people who came over maybe 1 or 2 generations ago.
Right. So that's the thing. There's two things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
We are, and that's where foundational Black American comes from.
Okay. Now, the argument is, well, technically, your people did come from Africa. They didn't immigrate because they wanted to. They were stolen and forced to come over here. But there was a movement from Africa into America, but that happened hundreds of years ago. So that's why you're differentiating from people who came over maybe 1 or 2 generations ago.
Right. So that's the thing. There's two things that happen. There was people brought over from Africa, but in smaller numbers, very small numbers here. Most of the people brought over from Africa didn't come to North America. Most of them were taken down to Brazil, taken to the Caribbean. I think it was less than 6% of the people brought from Africa who made it over here to North America. Those people who were brought over here from Africa, they were mixed in with the indigenous and Black indigenous tribes here, where there were a lot of Black.
Okay, he ran with it. Let's see what happens here. All right, here we go.
People who are already here. Several archaeologists and historians and other people, they proved this. There's a white archaeologist and historian back in the 70s and 80s. His name was Alexander von Wutnow, and he wrote some books. And he was working with the Smithsonian and all of these other museums showing. The book is called Unexpected Faces in Early America. And he talks about.
Let's look this up real quick, chat. Unexpected faces in early America. Unexpected faces. This is ancient America. Maybe that's let's see. StreamYard. There we go. Y'all can join with this really quickly. He said early America. Let me put early and see if that's actually a book. No, it's the same book. All right. Ancient America. Images. Unexpected faces. Okay, so this is going to like maybe some of the Mayan shit. 19 white men, indigenous. Okay. All right. Let me go back and see if we could find us a quick synopsis. Archives. Nah, I ain't about to do all that. Oh, wait. Let me look. Is these pictures? Pre-Columbian. Nah, can't get there. All right, chat. I'm trying to find a quick synopsis. We'll come back to this, but let me let him land his plane.
Book by a brother named Chase McGee. A young brother wrote a book with a lot of facts and receipts in it talking about the 19 white men who said they saw black people in the Americas. And he just went down the list of all of the explorers who got here and saw the natives, and they described them the same way they described African people. So there was already a black presence here. So that black presence here mixed with the Africans who were brought in. And then there was an ethnogenesis, and we became a new group, you see. So that's what the argument is, not that we don't have African DNA. Of course we have African DNA. I have African DNA. Most people on the planet have African DNA. But we had an ethnogenesis the same way a Jamaican had an ethnogenesis. They don't call themselves African Jamaican. You're Jamaican. You got a very unique history. When you see a Jamaican, their culture is unique. The food, the music, the style. Haitians the same way. I was in Fiji about a year or so ago. Beautiful people, beautiful black people with afros, and they told me their origin story. They're like, hey, brother, you know, our origin comes from East Africa. We came from East Africa centuries ago, and they were telling me all of the words that were over there that are in their vocabulary, and they were breaking this down. Fijians, they don't call themselves African Fijians, even though they acknowledge their African genesis. They had an ethnogenesis and became a whole different ethnic group. Same with us. We became a new ethnic group. We had a new culture, new style, new food, culinary things. We created a whole music, everything. The thing is, we are supposed to be an exploited, undefined, generic class. This is what the dominant society wants from us. So we're never supposed to define ourselves. They always give labels to us. You guys are colored. You guys are Negro. You guys are people of color. You guys are minorities. You guys are African American. And that has weakened us. So now we say, you know what? We're foundational Black Americans. And that's what it is. And that kind of shook up the table. Now that's a big discussion online now. You know?
Yeah, I actually looked it up while you were talking. So you're right. 388,000 enslaved Africans were brought directly to the United States out of over 12 million people who were forcibly transported across the Atlantic. Now, it would have been more, but then a bunch of them died. The whole Middle Passage situation.
And then in the early 1800s, they stopped the importation of African people. They stopped it. But the population was still growing. Why? Because there was already Black people here. Already here. California, there was a whole bunch of Black people here. The Mojave Indians, the Ohlone Indians. You got paintings and pictures of them. California is named after a Black woman, by the way, Queen Califia, based on a Moorish story from Spain. Yeah, you didn't know that?
I assumed this was a Mexican name just because so many of the cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, like these are all, you know, California was some sort of Mexican thing.
It's based on Califia. That's an Islamic word. Yeah, you know,
I learned something new today.
Yeah. The Moors, they were Muslims who were in Spain. And they brought a lot of Moors over here. When the Spanish explorers came, they brought a whole bunch of Christianized Moors over here. They had to convert them to Christianity. So when we talk about Mexico, Mexico was a slave colony too. People forget about that. They were really? Yeah, Mexico was a major slave colony.
Because Spain came over.
Spain came over. They had slavery.
Of course. They speak Spanish over there. It's like that's a native language.
Right.
The whole hemisphere, really.
A lot of the culture, the fandango and menudo, all of these things come from, you know, African culture. Even the Spanish rice. What the hell is Spanish rice? It's basically like a form of jollof. But
I like jollof better.
But one of the first presidents of Mexico, Vicente Guerrero, he was Black. He was the one who ended slavery down there. So slave and Pio Pico, he came up here from Mexico. He was Black and Hispanic. That's what Pico Boulevard is named after. Yeah. So there was a heavy Black presence down in Mexico that people like to forget. That's where the Olmec heads were. You go down to Tabasco, Mexico, you got these giant Olmec heads of these Black people. You got pyramids down there called the Bone and Pack murals, where you got Black people from thousands of years ago with black skin and dreadlocks down in Mexico.
All right, y'all. That was Tariq's part 2. But things to unpack there, but I don't know. I think that we could save some of this as he starts to get into his indigenous bag. We could save some of it for again, we got the To Be Fair show tomorrow, 6:00 new time, same people. I think we're gonna hop into a little bit of what I didn't get into today, which is the Micah Parsons conversation. We'll also get into like maybe we'll dive into the banality of evil a little bit. But I think Rail wants us to talk about do women like conservative men or liberal men. So we'll probably have some fun with that. I think that'll be a fun conversation. Go a little viral a little bit. But saying all that to say, this has been a fun episode. Chat, you ain't been talking to me as much, but I see y'all in here. This has been a fun conversation. Shout out to Chuck. Chuck came in. We actually had some really, really good back and forth and dialogue inside the manner in which, like, I enjoy engaging in dialogue. So this was fun. Nonetheless, with that said, this is XQ. I am Q. I appreciate y'all being in here with me, rocking with me. This was like a quick little research stream. Like I said, it wasn't too much of a point to it outside of just being able to watch some of the things that I wanted to watch. More so recently than that I just kind of miss. I'll probably try and do some of these a little bit more frequently, just to where we can kind of watch and commentate on certain things as I'm watching it, where, you know, like I have opinions that typically are built off things that people ask, like, where'd you get that from? Where'd you hear that from? And so what fun way to engage in it than with y'all? With that said, I'm Q. We out. Peace.